Chapter 11:22. In fact, Lu Ping had been practicing the 3 pure eyes during this period of time. Therefore, after 3 months of closed-door training, Lu Ping had completely mastered this magical power. When he used this magical power with all his strength, Lu Ping could even vaguely see the direction of the seabed's veins. However, Lu Ping was not a mind master. He could only see some things when he was very close to the veins. If it was Sage Xianwei or Sage Xianqin who had obtained this magical power, perhaps the two of them would be able to go further on the path of mind masters and formation masters. It was not easy to make high-level talismans. Therefore, although Lu Ping was willing to exchange more items, Sage Xuanju was unable to provide such a large number of high-level talismans to Lu Ping. Helpless, Lu Ping could only obtain some through other means. However, it was better than nothing. After refining the 3 pure eyes, perhaps because of this, Lu Ping's talisman-making technique seemed to have improved. Although it was not obvious, it was enough to make Lu Ping happy. In fact, when these talismans were about to be used up, the success rate of the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman had really increased. This also made Lu Ping decide to use the last 10 high-level talismans to try to make the 6-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Crackle! As the last talisman broke in the process of drawing the talisman, Lu Ping was very disheartened. Thinking back to the time when Tian Shui Laozu relied on the imperfect inheritance to push the restriction-breaking talisman all the way to the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman. What kind of talent was that? Even Sage Xuanju, although his cultivation was far from the Dharma stage, could now maintain a relatively stable success rate in making the 6-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Compared to these two, Lu Ping's talent in talisman making was really somewhat lacking. Looking at the array formation in front of him, Lu Ping's gaze was unfathomably deep. Then, Lu Ping walked at different paces with different rhythms. He didn't cause the slightest ripple in the array formation. Using the 3 pure true pupils, he passed through the 3 outermost layers of the dark sky seas array formation. This made Lu Ping more confident in the 3 pure eyes. In the next few days, although Lu Ping sometimes could not see the flaws in the formation, he could still find the weak points. Relying on Lu Ping's own strength, he broke through 5 formations in a row and advanced more than 10 miles. At this time, Lu Ping finally realized that something was wrong. Perhaps he was a little too careless. Sure enough, after observing the array formation in front of him for about 2 days, Lu Ping finally walked towards what he thought was the most suitable flaw in the array formation. Just as Lu Ping stepped into the flaw, a strange laughter suddenly sounded out. Ha 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 ha, you really are a rookie! Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He had once heard from Xiang Shiping about the dark space sea. Although the sea seemed unusually quiet after being shrouded by the array formation, there were countless array formation cultivators from all over the cultivation world hiding in the array formation. It was just that because of the array formation's concealment, most people couldn't see them. Therefore, every time Lu Ping prepared to break a formation, he was extremely careful. When he broke the formation just now, Lu Ping had prepared for 2 days. He had already carefully explored everything around him, but he clearly did not notice anyone nearby. However, at this time, Lu Ping had no time to care about other things. Just as he stepped into the flaw in the formation that he was originally worried about was not activated. Instead, several interlocking formations around the formation were suddenly activated. Frost arrows, fireballs, and wind blades suddenly attacked Lu Ping from all directions. Boom! 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 Hee hee hee! Amidst the strange laughter, Lu Ping was immediately engulfed by the attack light that filled the sky. However, a blue light suddenly burst out from the light that filled the sky, immediately collapsing the light that filled the sky. Lu Ping turned around unscathed and looked out of the formation. At this time, a strange man with long hair and a long beard appeared out of nowhere. His face was completely covered, and he was dressed like a beggar. He stared at Lu Ping in the formation with a pair of shocked eyes. The strange laughter from before had been swallowed back into his stomach and could no longer be heard. Ha! Breaking the formation with force is the simplest and most direct method. However, human strength is limited. You only blocked one attack from the formation has not been broken. Although the strange man was shocked by Lu Ping's strength, he still said this. As if to confirm the strange man's words, at this moment, the several interlocking formations were activated again, and a variety of spells that were more concentrated than before rained down on Lu Ping. Lu Ping snorted coldly. He stretched out his hand and sucked in the seawater under his feet. Suddenly, the seawater around him turned into small round water droplets. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and pushed. These 129,600 water droplets shot in all directions. Some turned into small swords, some turned into fish, some turned into birds, and some turned into water snakes. Within a radius of several tens of feet around Lu Ping, it suddenly exploded into a cloud of blue smoke. This time, the activation of the interlocking formations was once again blocked by Lu Ping. What a terrifying control of divine will! The strange man outside the formation jumped up and said, "The power of the attacks of the interlocking formations is secondary. The other thing is that they are concentrated and pervasive, making it difficult for one to defend against them. Even mid-Dharma adepts often have to attend to one thing and lose sight of the other. You can actually destroy all these attacks without missing a beat. Your level of divine will is probably no lower than that of a great Dharma adept, right?" Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He saw the strange man walking around the periphery excitedly, as if he was thinking about something. At this moment, the interlocking formations were activated again, ready to attack for the third time. "Io!" The strange man slapped his head, as if remembering something. Just as he was about to make a move, he saw 3 talismans suddenly fly out of Lu Ping's hands, flashing with 3-colored light. He stuffed the talismans onto the interlocking formations. The movements of the strange man's hands immediately slowed down. He watched as the 3-meter-long talismans exploded into 3 dazzling beams of 3-colored light in midair. The interlocking formations immediately collapsed under the impact of the light beams. "No way! 3-colored restriction-breaking talismans! You're really wasting God's gift. You actually need to use the 3-colored restriction-breaking talismans to break these nameless formations. Do you have a lot of restriction-breaking talismans? If you have the ability, why don't you break all the formations in the entire dark space sea?" The strange man was only a late core forging adept. When he saw that Lu Ping, an early Dharma adept, had broken through the formations in the blink of an eye and returned to his vicinity, he did not show the slightest bit of fear. Instead, he jumped up and down and shouted at Lu Ping. Lu Ping did not know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the strange man in front of him. Originally, Lu Ping had just fallen into the trap of the interlocking formations and had been suppressing a bellyful of anger. At this moment, this fellow had jumped out to make sarcastic remarks. Lu Ping had even regarded all of this as a setup by this fellow. He did not expect that now that Lu Ping had broken through the formations and could kill him with a single finger, this fellow would not show the slightest bit of fear. Instead, he confidently accused Lu Ping of using restriction-breaking talismans to break through the formations. Lu Ping furrowed his brows and abruptly swept his sleeves. A strong gust of wind immediately forced the strange man to swallow back his words. His face flushed red as he finally realized who he was facing. A trace of regret flashed across his eyes, and he was obviously a little afraid. Lu Ping frowned. Lu Ping waved his sleeves and suddenly, a strong gust of wind swept out. Lu Ping's face was cold as he said, "If you continue to be so noisy, you can just be a mute from now on." The strange man hurriedly shook his head like a rattled drum. However, with his head full of long hair and beard, he looked like a rolling ball of fur. "Tell me, how did you know that it was a trap? How long have you been hiding here? Was it just to frame me?" Lu Ping said calmly with his hands behind his back. The strange man immediately felt the pressure on him lessen. He fiercely took 2 deep breaths and said, "This junior is a formation master who came here to study formations. I have been in the dark space sea for more than 20 years. This is just an ordinary formation trap. Normally, those who have reached the level of a master in the field of formations would be able to see through it. This junior was indeed secretly observing senior's every move. However, I did not try to frame you, I was just curious. Curious? The strange man nodded and said, Curious, just curious. Scratching the tangled hair on his head, the strange man chuckled and said, This junior has actually been paying attention to senior for the past few days. I originally thought that senior was just a beginner in formations. Because the formations in the periphery are merely scribbles left behind by formation masters who study formations in the dark space sea. However, it took senior such a long time to break through them, Lu Ping couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. The strange man saw Lu Ping's expression and didn't dare to tease him anymore. He hurriedly continued, But senior is always able to accurately pinpoint the flaws in the array formations. In just a dozen days, you've passed through more than a dozen array formations. This made me a little confused. It wasn't until senior spent 2 days in front of this array formation that you finally chose the one that looked like a flaw in the array formation that I saw. In the end, I was convinced that senior isn't proficient in array formations at all. Instead, you're relying on a kind of eye technique that can see through the flaws in the array formations. That's how you managed to get here. Lu Ping's expression did not change as he asked, Oh, what is the explanation for this flaw in the formation? The strange man suddenly became interested and said, Speaking of this formation, it is actually just a rather ingenious formation in the periphery of the dark space sex formation. It's not that powerful. Oh? This is only the periphery of the dark space sex formation? Lu Ping asked with a hint of surprise in his voice. Isn't it just the periphery? This formation is actually a chain of formations, but for the formation in front of us, senior's previous foothold was indeed a flaw, but after it was combined with the surrounding formations, this flaw became a trap, a fuse that triggered the chain of formations. That's why senior was ambushed earlier. The eccentric immediately continued. Actually, I wanted to save senior earlier, but I didn't expect that senior's remarkable abilities would be able to force his way out. It's just that senior used the restriction-breaking talisman to break these small formations. It's really reckless. It's a bit of a waste of talent. Chapter 11:23. With Deng Ming's help, Lu Ping broke through several formations and headed towards the incomplete space formation. Deng Ming was the sloppy man with long beard and long hair. At that time, Lu Ping could not stand this guy's sloppiness and odor, so he shook his wrist. Deng Ming did not see how he made a hand seal, but he felt a whirlpool of water suddenly rise from under his feet with an unparalleled force and swallow him whole. Just when Deng Ming thought he was going to die, he suddenly felt the dizziness caused by the strange whirlpool disappear. Deng Ming finally felt something was wrong. When he opened his eyes, he saw Lu Ping still standing in front of him. The only difference was that at this time, Deng Ming's body seemed to have been rubbed 3 times, and he felt waves of comfort. The surging seawater under his feet even brought a cool breeze into the formation. Deng Ming suddenly realized something and reached out to touch his head. Sure enough, there was a flash of light. Not only his hair, but even his eyebrows and beard had disappeared. Deng Ming felt a chill in his heart. He knew that if Lu Ping wanted to kill him just now, it would really be no different from crushing an ant to death. However, his heart immediately relaxed. Since he did not die just now, it at least proved that the person in front of him would not kill him. Thinking back to how he had ridiculed Lu Ping as a rookie when he broke the formation, Deng Ming had already guessed the reason why Lu Ping did not kill him. The incomplete space formation was actually divided into 3 layers. The outermost layer was almost all the doodles of formation masters who had studied the incomplete space formation. It was often used to block some disturbances, but it could also be seen as a test to see if one was qualified to enter the incomplete space sea. Of course, if one was a beginner in formation, this outermost simple formation could be an excellent place to practice. When an array cultivator had the qualifications to become a real array master, he would be able to break through the outermost array formation and study the middle array formation. On the other hand, the middle formation was the work of the formation masters who had studied the incomplete space nether formation. The power of the formation here was much more difficult to deal with than the formations at the outermost layer. However, most of the formations here were the results of the formation masters who had studied the incomplete space nether formation. It was a tradition that the formation masters had formed with the original intention of protecting the incomplete formation. At the same time, it was also a stage for the formation masters of later generations to compete with each other. As a result, these formations often expressed the creativity and understanding of the formation master who studied the incomplete formations. The power of the formations might not be great, but they were often ingenious. Although ordinary formation masters had the qualifications to study these formations, if they wanted to thoroughly pass through the middle formations and truly come into contact with incomplete void formations, then their attainments in formations had to reach the level of a formation master. As for the chain formation that Lu Ping had triggered earlier, it was already in the middle of the formation. Oh, in that case, you're already a formation master, and you can come into contact with the inner space nether formation? Lu Ping asked with great interest. Of course, Deng Ming said with a trace of complacency. 20 years ago, I entered the space nether sea. I was just a cultivator who had reached the level of a formation master. However, in just 10 years, I've broken through from the outermost array formation to the true incomplete space nether formation. I'm a genuine formation master. In the next 10 years, I've already completely understood 3 of the space nether formations. Lu Ping glanced at the complacent Deng Ming and snorted coldly. It's only been 10 years since you became a formation master from an ordinary formation master, but you've only understood 3 of the space nether formations in the next 10 years. What's there to be proud of? When Deng Ming heard this, he immediately jumped to his feet. He did not even care that the person in front of him could easily turn him into ashes. He said loudly, What do you know? Every formation in the incomplete space nether formation is exquisite, and most of them were left behind by the formation masters of the space nether sect. The formation masters who stayed in the space nether sea all say that if a formation master can understand 7 of the space nether formations, then he's a well-deserved formation master. Lu Ping really didn't know about this, but he did know that Kong Ming sect's grand array formations spanned 1,000 miles, and there were at least 1,000 arrays of various sizes. Yet, an array grandmaster was able to reach the level of an array formation grandmaster by just comprehending 7 arrays. Lu Ping found it hard to believe. Don't think that it's easy to comprehend these 7 formations. Deng Ming seemed to understand what Lu Ping was thinking, and he said, There are countless formation masters from various sects hidden in the space nether sea, and there's no lack of disciples from influential clans and sections. They all have a complete formation inheritance and sufficient resources in their sects, but they still come here to study the incomplete space nether formation. There are even many cultivators who spend hundreds of years but are not necessarily able to break through 7 formations and become a formation master. I'm just an independent formation cultivator without a sect, but I was able to consecutively break through 3 of the incomplete space nether formations in over 10 years. I'm not inferior to the formation masters cultivated by those famous sects. Lu Ping was slightly surprised, and he could not help but feel a trace of respect for the formation master beside him. It was truly not easy for an independent cultivator to reach this step. As they spoke, the 2 of them broke through a formation, and Deng Ming suddenly said, This is the place. This is the boundary between the middle layer of the space nether sea and the inner layer of the incomplete space nether formation. Lu Ping looked around and said, How come there doesn't seem to be any difference? The formations here are all connected, so how can you tell the difference between the remnant formations and the formations left behind by those who came later? Deng Ming smiled, and he casually formed a hand seal and struck the formation behind him. A layer of colorful light flashed over the formation, and it immediately calmed down again. In order to pay tribute to the cultivators of the space nether sect, when the formation masters left their formations, they limited the light of the formations to 5 colors. Some even did not hesitate to lower the formation's power. However, the true incomplete space nether formations are all colorful. As soon as Deng Ming finished speaking, he formed a hand seal and a colorful light immediately flashed from the formation in front of him. Lu Ping nodded and said, "So that's how it is. Then, where are the remains of the senior cultivator you spoke of?" Deng Ming said, "It's from this formation in front of us, and it should be around the 5th formation." Lu Ping turned to look at Deng Ming and said, "Didn't you say that you could only break through 3 formations?" Deng Ming explained, "That's right. When I accidentally broke through the 2nd formation, I could already sense the remains of the senior. Unfortunately, after several years, I could only break through the 3rd formation, and was unable to open the 4th formation. However, now that I have senior's help, opening the 4th formation won't be difficult." Lu Ping looked at him strangely and said, "Do you know what's in the remains?" Deng Ming said blankly, "I don't know. I hope I can obtain the inheritance of the senior's formation. After all, the things that we loose cultivators practice are often not systematic. For the senior to be able to reach there, he must have broken through at least 4 formations, or even more. His cultivation in formation is at least above mine." Lu Ping watched as Deng Ming began to take something out of his storage magic tool, and it seemed that he was going to break through the formation. Lu Ping said, "Are there many remains of formation masters here?" Deng Ming's speed in setting up the formation slowed slightly, and he slowly said with a somewhat bleak tone, "There are indeed. Some formation masters spend their entire lives studying formations here, until they die in meditation. They have long regarded this place as their home. However, most of them are trapped in the formation while studying it, unable to break it, and gradually die of old age." As he spoke, Deng Ming skillfully placed several tools used for setting up the formation in different positions, then activated a formation plate in his hand. Several halos suddenly appeared on the broken formation, and a 5-foot-tall gate suddenly appeared on the broken formation. "Senior, let's go." Usually, after these formations are broken by later cultivators, they must be restored to their original state as much as possible. This is the cultivation holy land of formation masters, and everything must be preserved as much as possible so that it can be passed down to future generations. Otherwise, no matter how profound the formation left behind by the Kongming sect is, it won't be enough for us formation masters to break it after thousands of years. Deng Ming was the first to step into the formation through the gate. Lu Ping thought for a moment, and then calmly shook his sleeves, and then followed Deng Ming into the first layer of the formation. Watching the gate slowly shrink behind him until it disappeared, Lu Ping looked up. At this moment, he was already in a 7-colored formation space. On the other side, Deng Ming had begun to set up a 2nd formation. Lu Ping's eyes grew deeper and deeper. He wandered around this layer of the array formation space, casually looking for something. Seeing that, Deng Ming said, "Senior, I have more or less checked this space. There shouldn't be any traps here. However, once we break the new formation, you will have to be careful. There might be some formations within formations, or traps within formations. Once we step inside, it will be good if the formation is not strong. If it is the other way around, we might end up like the senior's corpse that I saw, trapped inside." Not long after Lu Ping and Deng Ming stepped into the formation and the gate disappeared, the light from the formation next to them suddenly dissipated. The sound of footsteps rang out, and a middle-aged man slowly walked out. Looking at the spot where the gate had appeared, an inquisitive look appeared on his face. He said, "How did this person get here? Could he be a formation master? However, he doesn't look like it. Heh, if I meet him somewhere else, I might have to avoid him and feign civility. However, this is a good opportunity to kill him." Chapter 11:24. Lu Ping naturally didn't know that he was being watched by someone he knew. At this moment, Lu Ping followed behind Deng Ming. They had already broken through the 3rd layer of the formation and arrived in front of the 4th formation. This was where Deng Ming had been stumped all these years. Behind this formation, There was a corpse surrounded by the fifth layer of formation. After Lu Ping used his eye technique, he could vaguely see a storage magic item on the waist of the corpse. This is the fourth formation. For the past 4 or 5 years, I've been trapped in front of this fourth formation. Until now, I've only managed to deduce 4 formation nodes. If I want to break this formation, I'll have to find at least 8 formation nodes before I can try. Even then, I may not succeed. Lu Ping looked around and suddenly said, "The formations here are interconnected. Each formation is surrounded by several formations. Perhaps the fourth formation you're facing is actually a formation that can be considered exquisite even among the spatial nether formations. It's far beyond your understanding. Even a formation master may not be able to break it easily." Deng Ning wanted to grab his hair, but then he remembered that his head was already shining. He simply touched his shiny skull and chuckled. "Perhaps. It's just that I've spent several years on this formation. I really don't want to give it up, but I've forgotten about the others. Actually, you don't have to spend all your time on this formation. You can go and study the other formations. That way, the difficulty will be much lower. Once you've completely understood the 7 formations and obtained the qualifications of a formation grandmaster, wouldn't it be better to come back and study this formation? Even if you still can't completely understand it at that time, you can start from the formations at the side and go around this formation. You'll still be able to obtain the relics left behind by the remains." Deng Ning smiled and said, "Perhaps it's because I've been stuck in a dead end. I've been studying this formation for some time, and it's not that I don't have any clues. It's just that the progress is a little slow. I really can't stop. I always feel that as long as I persist for a while, I can find a key node and break this formation. I've been like this for 4 or 5 years." Lu Ping nodded and said, "Then what do you want me to do?" "I need the help of Senior's eye technique to find a few key formation nodes. This way, I can deduce the operation of this formation based on these nodes and open this formation." "All right." Lu Ping performed the 3 pure true pupils to the extreme. Suddenly, 6 light spots converged on the formation. 4 of them were already found and marked by Deng Ning, and the other 2 were not found by him. When Lu Ping pointed out the 2 nodes, Deng Ning inevitably showed a suspicious look on his face. He said, "That's it." Lu Ping didn't say anything. Deng Ning still seemed to be worried. He spread a dense fog wall above the formation shield with his Jinyuan, and no one knew what he was calculating. After a while, he said in surprise, "These 2 are really the key points of the formation. How could I not think of it? The 3 pure true pupils is really the most famous eye technique in the world of cultivation. No wonder those formation cultivators from famous sects practice it. It's really good for the study of formations. You can open it now." That's not enough. At least I need to find the 8 nodes on the formation where the spiritual energy converges. Only then can I open the formation without damaging the formation's foundation. After that, I can easily restore it. Actually, if you use these 6 nodes to weaken the formation's strength as much as possible, I can easily break this formation." Deng Ning's expression changed. He said, "No." "Why?" "You should know that this will save you a lot of time. Moreover, you can easily take out the inheritance of the formation master's remains." Deng Ning still stubbornly shook his head and said, "No. This ancestor's relic is the holy land of formations. It can't be destroyed." Lu Ping was exasperated, but there was nothing he could do. After a while, he said, "What if I destroy it now and you repair it in the future?" Deng Ning stopped his calculations and said, "Senior is not a formation cultivator. Perhaps you don't agree with the insistence of formation cultivators like me. In that case, I'll talk about something else. Ever since the Kong-Ming faction was destroyed by the combined forces of the overseas sects, the formation here has actually been linked together in a strange way. It's like fallen vines tangling together. Although it's a broken formation, it's actually more difficult to deal with than the intact Kong-Ming faction's protective formation. So what? That is to say, if Senior uses a strong method to break the formation, it will definitely cause the entire formation to shake, which will alarm the formation masters currently cultivating in the Kongming formation. The furious formation masters will immediately follow the clues and find this place. After that, Senior will face the encirclement of all the formation masters currently cultivating in the formation. Deng Ming paused, then emphasized, the encirclement of the formation masters. This is a heaven for formation masters. In the past, in order to maintain the integrity of the formation masters here worked together to kill countless cultivators who tried to break the formation by force. Among them, there were many new talents and old masters from the various sections. According to what I know, there were even 2 people who were at the level of a great cultivator. Because they thought that their status was extraordinary, and they were skilled, they provoked the anger of the masses and were attacked by the formation masters. In the end, they died with grievances. Lu Ping was dumbfounded when he heard this. Deng Ming, who was beside him, knew that nothing he said would be of any use. Only these words would be effective, and he could not help but shake his head. Lu Ping really did not want to speed up and break the formation by force. At this moment, he even somewhat regretted coming to the Kongming Sea at this time. At this time, his cultivation had already reached the limit of the early Dharma stage. If he had not used a secret technique to seal his cultivation, he would probably have immediately attracted the first lightning tribulation. Although Deng Ming did not know why Lu Ping had come to the Kongming Sea, he could roughly guess. Therefore, when he saw that Lu Ping was a little upset, he said, I will now use these 6 nodes to shake the entire formation in different ways. Senior, see if you can find new nodes when the formation is shaken. Lu Ping looked a little hesitant and said, Shake the formation? It won't arouse the suspicion of others, will it? Deng Ming smiled and shook his head. No, it won't. I know what I'm doing. This level of shaking will not break any of the formations in the Kongming Legacy formation, and it will not attract the attention of other practitioners. Lu Ping had originally thought that this method of testing would be completed very quickly. However, he did not expect that the different methods that Deng Ming had mentioned not only included using a secret technique to search for the nodes, but at the same time, it also included using different combinations of nodes to test the formation. Furthermore, when different combinations appeared, some of the formation equipment that had been set up would have to be changed. In order to speed up the process, Lu Ping had to help. The entire process took more than a month. With Lu Ping's help, they finally found the other 2 nodes, and Lu Ping's gain was that his knowledge of formations had been greatly enriched. Haha, it seems that our speed is still very fast. Senior's eye sorcery is really powerful. Lu Ping was speechless. He had been waiting for more than a month and had long been impatient. However, on the other hand, Deng Ming had spent 4 years to find the 4 nodes of the formation. Although it was often the most difficult to crack a formation at the beginning, as more nodes were found, more things could be deduced. However, it had only taken him a month to find 4 nodes, which was really very fast. In the end, he said helplessly, You'd better hurry up. 8 nodes are enough now. Hurry up and open this formation. Deng Ming knew that Lu Ping was anxious, but he was still setting up the equipment to break the formation at a steady pace. He strived to succeed in one go. He was a rogue cultivator, and various kinds of cultivation resources were scarce. He had to rely on himself to collect them. Therefore, the layout of the formation was very detailed, and he strived to not make any mistakes. Even though Lu Ping had helped him a lot of spiritual materials that could be used to make the equipment, Deng Ming still did not dare to be careless. However, the result disappointed Lu Ping. After Deng Ming communicated with the 8 nodes, he still failed. The formation still could not be opened. Seeing the disappointment on Lu Ping's face, Deng Ming smiled and said, Actually, Senior does not need to be disappointed. I have said before that there is a possibility of opening it by communicating with the 8 nodes. Now that I cannot open it, it only means that the layout of this formation is extremely exquisite. It even far surpasses the other formations in the Lost Formation. We need to find more nodes to open it, Lu Ping said unhappily. Didn't you study formations here with the aim of breaking the 7 formations and becoming a formation grandmaster? Wouldn't it be better if you went to study other formations? Why did you have to gnaw on this formation? Now that you have used all kinds of methods and combinations, you can only find 8 nodes. How much more time do you need to spend on the rest? Deng Ming was not the slightest bit affected by Lu Ping's anger. Instead, he threw himself into the study of formations with even greater enthusiasm. It seemed that the exquisiteness of this formation had exceeded his expectations and made him even more excited. After hearing Lu Ping's words, Deng Ming smiled and said, "It won't take much time. Senior, have you forgotten that we can combine the 7th and 8th nodes into many more combinations?" Lu Ping helplessly rolled his eyes. He hadn't gained anything else in the past month, but it seemed that he had become more proficient in using the Tripure True Pupils. He could now display its full power. This time, it didn't take much time. After 7 days, the two of them had combined their efforts to find 4 nodes. Then, Deng Ming finally opened a door on the protective barrier of the formation. The two of them entered the door, and the door slowly closed. Not long after the two of them entered the 4th formation, a door suddenly opened behind the 3rd formation that had been opened by Deng Ming. Mr. Wen entered the door and looked all around. Then, his eyes finally landed on the protective barrier of the 4th formation. Then, he sneered and said, "It's just a small trick. It's a pity that a talented formation master would be wasted." Chapter 11:25. It took Deng Ming several years to understand this formation. But now, Mr. Wen was able to break it with ease. If Deng Ming was here, then only a formation master who had broken this formation would be able to do so. Otherwise, even a formation master would have to spend a lot of effort to break it open. But Mr. Wen didn't expect Deng Ming to be able to do so with such ease. Mr. Wen looked at the 4th formation in front of him and took out a formation plate. Then, he started to scatter hundreds of formation tools in all directions. Each tool was placed in a different position. Mr. Wen then pressed 3 top-quality spirit stones into the formation plate. Suddenly, the formation lit up with 18 light spots. These were the 12 nodes that Deng Ming had spent several years to find. Then, Mr. Wen made an incantation gesture, and the hundreds of formation tools around him lit up with a misty white light. Then, Mr. Wen made the incantation gesture even faster. Suddenly, the 18 light spots on the formation began to move and rearrange themselves into an irregular shape. Then, they became still again. Then Mr. Wen stopped his movements. He looked at the nodes of the spell formation in front of him, but he still didn't feel at ease. So, he stretched out his hand and patted the formation plate. The 3 top-grade spirit stones were smashed into powder, and a third of the hundreds of spell formation tools scattered in the surroundings were also blown up. At this moment, the 18 nodes on the protective shield of the array flickered again. Then, an even more amazing phenomenon occurred. Outside the 18 irregular light spots, a dim light spot gradually began to flicker, and then became brighter and brighter until it was the same size as the other 18 light spots. This wasn't the end of it. Then, a second light spot began to twinkle on the barrier. Then, a third light spot appeared on the barrier. Mr. Wen heaved a sigh of relief. He then said to himself, "It won't be easy to get out of here." If Deng Ming were here, then he would have been shocked by Mr. Wen's methods. Not only did Mr. Wen not weaken the formation, but he also strengthened it. According to Mr. Wen's understanding, even a great formation master wouldn't be able to do this, let alone in such a short period of time. It must be known that the protective formation of the Kongming sect was a very large system. The formations were interconnected with each other, forming a very intricate whole. In the past, the overseas sects had joined forces to break this intricate formation. Many Dharma adepts had joined forces and expended a lot of energy. But they had only been able to break it. The Kongming sect's formation had stood strong for thousands of years. This was partly due to the meticulous maintenance of the formation by the previous generations of formation masters. But the most important factor was the stability of the formation. It could be said that a slight change in one part could affect the entire formation. Under these circumstances, the only ones who could change the Kongming sect's protective formation were the formation masters of the Kongming sect. There were only a limited number of them who could become experts. If one could force them to be divided into two levels, then it would depend on whether they could weaken or strengthen the sect's formation. Weakening was easy, but strengthening was extremely difficult. The protective formation of the Kongming sect was meticulously laid out by the formation masters of the Kongming sect. Only they were able to continuously improve the formation as they continued to study the formation. Mr. Wen was able to do the same. This meant that Mr. Wen's attainments in formations were at least at the level of the formation masters of the Kongming sect. In the entire world of practitioners, Mr. Wen stood at the pinnacle of the formation masters. Mr. Wen didn't stay here for long. Instead, he blocked Lu Ping and the others' escape route. Then, he turned to the side and opened the third array formation. The fourth array formation was right next to the other array formation's periphery. What's wrong? Lu Ping asked casually as he looked at Deng Ming, who was looking behind him with a puzzled expression. It's nothing. Maybe it's because I've spent 4 to 5 years trying to break this array formation, but now, I've broken it in less than 2 months. It feels unreal. It's as if this array formation isn't the one I broke earlier at all. Lu Ping chuckled and said, That's normal. After all, you and I worked together to break through the array formation. You didn't have much time to accumulate. After we achieve our goal, you can always return to your studies. I'm sure you'll make great progress in the art of array formations. Deng Ming turned his attention back to the fifth formation and said, Improvement is inevitable. This time, with seniors' help, juniors' improvement on the path of formations will definitely be shortened by several years. Not to mention, there's still the corpse in front of us. Even if he's not a formation grandmaster, he's at least at the pinnacle of the standard grandmaster level for being able to make it here. Through the formation shield, the corpse inside could be seen more clearly. Lu Ping smiled and didn't answer. At this time, his attention was not on Deng Ming's investigation of the formation. Instead, he was walking casually in the small space covered by the fourth formation, as if he was taking a walk. At the same time, he seemed to be surprised by everything in this space and looked around. With Lu Ping's support for spiritual materials, Deng Ming could finally relax a little and make some adequate preparations. However, these spiritual materials could only be used as formation tools. Some were simple tools or substitutes made by Deng Ming's snacks. This made Lu Ping sigh. No wonder the cultivation world said that individual cultivators were the real all-rounders. Because they didn't have the support of sects and forces, every step forward on the road of cultivation was extremely difficult. In order to make full use of the limited resources in their hands, they had to understand all kinds of aspects, cultivating and identifying spiritual herbs, alchemy, refining weapons, making talismans, searching for ores, and so on. However, it was also because of this that they had to spend more energy to learn and experiment these things, which greatly shortened their cultivation time. In the end, the strength of individual cultivators was weaker than that of cultivators of the same level. Seeing that Lu Ping was so leisurely, Deng Ming didn't dare to say anything at first. However, after a long time, seeing that Lu Ping was still so undisciplined, he finally couldn't hold it anymore and said, "Senior, can you help me?" Lu Ping said oh, and asked curiously, "Can we start to break the formation now?" Deng Ming was speechless for a while. After a while he said, "Senior, you should use the Sanqin True Pupils to check if you can find 1 or 2 nodes, right? Or perhaps you can look around and see if there are any other flaws?" As long as he didn't break the formation by force, other methods didn't matter. Only by breaking the formation could Deng Ming have the opportunity to analyze and learn the formation. Everything else was just empty talk. Yes. Lu Ping was suddenly enlightened. He hurried to the 5th formation and was about to check it carefully. However, he seemed to think of something and turned to Deng Ming and said, "Actually, I have a restriction-breaking talisman here. If you are in a hurry to get the remains in the 5th formation, I can help you." Deng Ming was stunned for a moment before he shook his head and said, "The formation breaking talisman can break a formation, but it's different from the traditional method of breaking a formation. Using it to break a formation will either completely destroy the formation or completely repair it. It's impossible to calculate the foundation, nodes, and spiritual energy of the formation because there won't be any traces left behind. Therefore, it's useless to study formations." Speaking of this, Deng Ming seemed to think of something and continued, "What's more, using a restriction-breaking talisman to break the formation is too extravagant." Lu Ping didn't want to study the formation. He wanted to find what he wanted as soon as possible, and then leave this place to pass the first thunder tribulation. Moreover, at this time, he thought of the weak situation of the formation when he used the formation-breaking talisman in the Ingtian Taoism field. Therefore, he thought for a while and asked, "How many colors of restriction-breaking talisman do you think are needed to break this formation?" 5 colors? Deng Ming was a little uncertain. He had only heard about the power of the formation-breaking talisman, and saw a few words in the incomplete inheritance. With his status, how could he see such a high-level talisman? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so excited when he saw Lu Ping use the 3-color restriction-breaking talisman for the first time. However, he was a formation master after all. Even if he hadn't seen the restriction-breaking talisman before, he could still estimate its power. Then, he gave Lu Ping a positive answer and said, "Well, it shouldn't be a problem to use the 5-color restriction-breaking talisman to break a space door. If we use the 7-color restriction-breaking talisman directly, we should be able to completely destroy this formation. However, in that case, we don't need to live anymore. Even if we don't die from the chain effect of the broken formation, we will be surrounded and beaten to death by the formation masters who rush here after hearing the news. What if we use the 3-color restriction-breaking talisman to weaken the formation first? In this way, we may be able to find the flaw of this formation together. Then, we can slowly open the door of the formation. In this way, not only can we shorten the time to break the formation, but it won't affect your study of formation." Deng Ming was stunned. After thinking for a while, it seemed that Lu Ping's method was indeed feasible, but, "This is indeed a method, but it will be a waste of the formation-breaking talisman. It is too extravagant." Extravagant? Lu Ping used his spiritual sense to scan the 3 stacks of different colored talismans in his storage device. Among them, the most stacks were the 3-color restriction-breaking talisman. There were a total of 17 of them. The second stack was the 4-color restriction-breaking talisman, and the last stack was the 5-color restriction-breaking talisman. However, there were a total of 8 of them. This was also because Lu Ping's success rate in crafting the 5-color restriction-breaking talisman had greatly increased. Other than that, Lu Ping still had 2 7-color restriction-breaking talismans that he had obtained from Tian Shui Laozu. However, these 2 were much more important. Lu Ping had placed them in a meticulously sealed spirit sealing box. Chapter 11:26. Lu Ping tried his best to use the 3 pure eyes, but he could only see a dim light spot on the protective wall of the formation. Obviously, it was an unimportant node. Lu Ping threw a 3-colored restriction-breaking talisman on it. The 3-colored light swept over the protective wall of the formation, and the whole protective wall suddenly burst into a layer of light, which seemed to be fighting against the 3-colored light, or being sucked out of the protective wall by the light of the talisman. Lu Ping's eyes were like cyan abysses, but he only saw a dim node on the protective wall of the formation, in addition to the previous light spot node. The second one was found, but there were only 2. "Senior, the power of the formation is obviously beyond my estimation." Deng Ming touched his bald head, and seemed to be very ashamed of what he had calculated. Then he saw Lu Ping directly stick a 4-colored restriction-breaking talisman on the protective wall of the formation without saying anything. 4-colored. Before Deng Ming's exclamation faded away, Lu Ping had already seen the other 4 nodes on the protective array formation. Among them, only 2 nodes were much brighter than before. Including the 2 nodes he found earlier, the other 4 nodes were abnormally dim and gloomy. While the effect of the four-colored restriction-breaking talisman was still there, Deng Ming quickly set up a few formation tools, which echoed with the 6 nodes on the protective wall of the formation. Then he began to work on the entire protective wall of the formation. Lu Ping's 3 pure eyes, which had been completely refined, burst out 2 cyan lights at this time. Then he stuck 3 marks on the protective wall of the formation before the effect of the four-colored restriction-breaking talisman disappeared. "How is it?" Deng Ming nodded excitedly and said, "Great! I only used a 3-colored and a 4-colored restriction-breaking talisman. This is too wasteful. I'm really ashamed. Hee, as long as it can shorten the time to break the formation." Deng Ming nodded and said, "I see. But these 9 nodes need to be tested for a long time again. These nodes are divided into 2 kinds, bright and obscure. Only 3 of the 9 nodes are bright, and the other 6 are obviously dim. I don't know what's going on." It took Deng Ming more than a month's time. After repeatedly refusing Lu Ping's array-breaking charms, Deng Ming finally found 6 more nodes in the array formation with the help of Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils. Then, the array formation's entrance was cut out from the wall. When the 2 of them reached the 5th formation, Deng Ming was no longer anxious about the remains that were right in front of him. He turned around to look at the formation behind him and said, I understand. I said that the 4th and 5th formation are much harder to break than the outer formation of the legendary Nether Void formation. The formation has already been modified, and it's similar to strengthening it. This is already close to the strength of the 6th formation. At this time, Lu Ping more or less understood the situation of the Hidden Void formation. He knew what it meant to be able to strengthen any of the formations in the Hidden Void formation. He said in surprise, "Doesn't this mean that only the top formation masters in the world of cultivation can do this?" "Yes, that's right." Deng Ming turned to look at the corpse behind him and said, "If that's the case, it's very likely that these 2 strengthened formations came from the person in front of me when he was still alive. In other words, I might have obtained an extremely impressive legacy." By then, the open door of the formation had slowly closed up. Lu Ping smiled at Deng Ming and said, "Congratulations, then. This time, you've broken the 4th and 5th formation consecutively, which are equivalent to the 6th and 7th formation inside the Hidden Void formation. As long as you take the time to study them, you will definitely be able to understand the essence of these 2 formations. When that time comes, the world of cultivation will probably have another formation master." Deng Ming smiled and said, "This is all thanks to Senior's help. Otherwise, I wouldn't have such great hope." As Deng Ming said that, he began to tidy up the corpse before him. On the side, Lu Ping said meaningfully, "Yes, without the support of a force, whether it's an alchemist, a refiner, or a formation master, in the world of cultivation, almost all of them are in a difficult situation." Deng Ming placed a piece of animal skin and a palm-sized abacus in front of him. Then, he took the storage artifact from his waist and began to check it in his hand. At the same time, he smiled and said, "Senior, are you interested in me?" Lu Ping quickly shook his head and said, "I'm not interested in you. It's the sect that I'm in that is interested in you." Deng Ming's face lit up. He took out 3 jade slips from his storage artifact and carefully checked them one by one. It seemed that the formation inheritance left by the corpse should be in these 3 jade slips. Seeing him like this, Lu Ping stopped talking. After a while, Deng Ming finally reacted. He smiled at Lu Ping apologetically and immediately asked, "Senior, can you make the decision? Why would they accept a formation master of unknown origin like me?" Lu Ping did not answer Deng Ming's question directly. Instead, he said, "How about a treasure ship?" "What?" Deng Ming was stunned. Then, a trace of yearning and doubt appeared on his face. He said, "A treasure ship?" Deng Ming did not think that Lu Ping had the right to casually accept a rogue cultivator and an unknown formation master in the sect. Just like the process of accepting foreign cultivators by ordinary sects, the test of passing the recognition might take decades or even hundreds of years. How could Deng Ming wait for such a long time? However, Lu Ping immediately used a treasure ship to destroy Deng Ning's conjecture. What was a treasure ship? It was a secret among secrets of a sect. It was a mobile base of an overseas sect. It was on par with the first secret place of inheritance of a sect, a great sect protector, a main spiritual vein, and so on. It could be called the foundation of a sect. Yet, it was so easily revealed to Deng Ning. The right to speak? If Lu Ping was worried about this, would he reveal the treasure ship to Deng Ning? This was a powerful counterattack to the right to speak. Lu Ping did not care about the right to speak in the sect at all. He had the qualifications that the sect was willing to break the rules for. However, at this time, the first thing that came to Deng Ning's mind was naturally a formation master's yearning for a treasure ship. For a formation master, there were only 3 recognized achievements in their life. First, breaking the entire mysterious void formation, which no one could achieve. Second, presiding over the establishment of a sect-protecting formation for a sect. Third, participating in the construction of a treasure ship, which was known as the pinnacle of all cultivation arts, and taking charge of one of the important tasks. Participating in the construction of the treasure ship, Deng Ning naturally knew that he could not take charge of one task. After all, how could there not be a formation master among the sects that could build their own treasure ship? Even so, being able to participate in the construction of a treasure ship was an indescribable temptation for a formation master. But then, he was overwhelmed by the second thought of fear. For the first thought of a beautiful future, the secret of the treasure ship was revealed to him without hesitation. Deng Ning looked at Lu Ping, who was walking around again. At the same time, he looked at the surrounding formation walls from time to time. However, at this time, Deng Ning could already see that Lu Ping seemed to be looking for something, and what he was looking for was probably related to the purpose of breaking into the mysterious void formation, as he was not a formation master at all. Deng Ning's twinkling eyes naturally fell on Lu Ping, but it was not good for him to explain anything now. No matter what, Deng Ning's talent and achievements in formations were enough to make Lu Ping admire him. "You know, I could have invited you on another occasion." Deng Ning naturally understood what Lu Ping meant. This was the mysterious void formation, a heaven for formations, his home ground. If the two of them really fell out after Deng Ning rejected him, there was no other place in the mysterious void formation that could give Deng Ning the confidence to go against a Dharma adept. Moreover, the two of them had only met by chance. If one were to say that Deng Ning had not secretly taken precautions against Lu Ping, even Deng Ning himself would not believe it. Deng Ning finally answered seriously. "I need to think about it." "All right." Lu Ping answered without hesitation, and then asked, "What did you gain from the remains?" Deng Ning excitedly waved the abacus, the animal skin, and the 3 jade scrolls in his hands, saying, "This senior was indeed a Grand Master in matrices. These 3 jade scrolls contain the legacy of matrices he left behind. This abacus is an auxiliary treasure used by matrices practitioners. Haha, it's already a spirit cultivation level treasure. If I had this treasure in hand, the time I spent calculating the nodes of the matrices would definitely be greatly reduced. And this animal skin is a diagram drawn by this senior after he entered the mysterious void formation. From the looks of it, this senior has already deciphered 9 matrices from the outside in. My goodness, this is a top-notch grandmaster in matrices, and he has comprehended a total of 29 matrices in the mysterious void formation?" The number 29 at the end caused Deng Ning's tone to rise abruptly, and his face was filled with disbelief. He had studied in the mysterious void sea for more than 20 years, and he had only deciphered 3 complete matrices. If not for Lu Ping's help, he would not have been able to decipher the 4th and 5th matrices. Even so, if he wanted to completely comprehend these 2 matrices, he would have needed at least 2 to 3 years. But this person had already comprehended 29 matrices. What a difference! At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly exclaimed and asked, "Why is the color of the 5th matrice's protective cover changing?" "What?" Deng Ning quivered, and broke free from the joy of obtaining the matrices. When he turned to look, he saw that the fifth matrice's protective cover, which had been deciphered earlier, was turning red. Deng Ming's expression changed drastically, and he shouted, "Oh no, someone is ambushing us outside. This person's ability in matrices is far above mine." Before he had finished speaking, a huge spot of light suddenly condensed on the protective cover of the matrices, and then a green flame shot out from the spot of light, pouncing towards Deng Ming's body. Under the cover of the flame, 3 invisible hands made of yuan qi grabbed at the treasures in Deng Ming's hands. Chapter 11:27. What a thief! Lu Ping thought that someone was coveting Deng Ming's inheritance. A golden rock flew behind him, and an auspicious cloud blocked the oncoming fire. However, the 3 primordial qi hands were still reaching for the item in Deng Ming's hand. Lu Ping's flying sword shot out, but he suddenly noticed that the protective wall of the formation suddenly lit up with 3 flashes of light that were even brighter than the previous one. A cold mist with several golden needles shot toward Lu Ping, and its power was many times stronger than the attack that had been aimed at Deng Ming. A wall of sword light suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ping, blocking the 2 attacks. At the same time, the flying sword that was slashing toward the primordial qi hands became much weaker. Only 2 of the 3 primordial qi hands were cut off, and the remaining one forcibly took the spirit-nurturing magic treasure from Deng Ming's hand. "Get ready to open the 5th formation. I want to see who is out there plotting against us." Lu Ping's 10,000 swords shot out at the same time, and 129,600 sword lights instantly suppressed all the spells that had been activated by the 5th formation. He shouted at Deng Ming. The cloud sails materialized and surrounded Deng Ming's body, just in case. Deng Ming also put away the 2 remaining items in his hand, and then quickly approached the protective wall of the formation. At this time, he did not care about the formation tools in his hand, and he threw them around as if they were worthless, preparing to open the protective wall of the formation. The spells activated by the 5th formation became more and more powerful. Although Lu Ping's expression was ugly, he did not panic at all. The 2 flying swords dashed left and right, turning into countless golden lights, and actually suppressed the spells released by the formation to a distance of only 10 feet away from the formation. In other words, every time the formation released a spell, it would often be broken by a sword light before it could fly more than 10 feet away. Lu Ping was far from the legend that Jiao Daoren had left in the cultivation world, but the spells that Lu Ping was suppressing could not be compared to the 10,000 spells that Jiao Daoren had mentioned. "No!" Not far away, Deng Ming's anxious voice came. "The formation can't be opened anymore. The nodes on it have obviously been changed. In such a short time, the person who can do this must be a formation grandmaster, and an extremely brilliant one at that. I am far from being a match for him. With the help of the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman, how long will it take to open it? I can't open it. As long as the cultivator behind this formation is still presiding over it, I can't open it." Lu Ping knew that he had asked a stupid question, so he hurriedly said, "What about the 6th formation? Didn't the corpse leave behind an inheritance, saying that it had opened up to the 9th formation when it was alive?" There was a hint of despair in Deng Ming's hoarse voice as he said, "No, even if I know the method to break it, it will be impossible to open it without several days of preparation. Moreover, the tools needed to break the 6th formation are even more precious. Where can I find them in such a hurry? Damn it!" Lu Ping roared and said, "What if I use the restriction-breaking talisman?" The 2 of them were under the protection of the 5th formation, but they were also in front of the 6th formation. Moreover, there were several other formations around them that formed a semicircle. Just as Lu Ping asked this question, the other formations that were adjacent to the 5th formation that Lu Ping had broken earlier were also activated at the same time. Countless frosts, flames, golden swords, and silver sabers flew towards the 2 of them, as if there was no end to them. Lu Ping knew that although the current attacks were strong and dense, they were not so powerful that he could not handle them. However, the problem was that formations relied on the power of heaven and earth, Although Lu Ping was confident that his true essence was abundant, there would be a time when it would be used up. If he could not find a way out by then, the only option left for him was to die. At least the 7-colored talisman is possible. Deng Ming's answer once again made Lu Ping go crazy. He said, "It's possible, how can it be?" Deng Ming shouted, "These formations are interconnected, and the closer we are to the inner layer, the more it is like this. The 6th layer formation can be regarded as the inner core of the nether void array. If you want to break any of the formations in the 6th layer, you will have to face the support of more than one formation." As Deng Ming spoke, he also tried his best to resist the attacks around him. Although he had the help of the cloud sail, and these formations were obviously focused on Lu Ping after they were activated, Deng Ming was only a late core forging cultivator. The fact that he could persist for so long had obviously attracted the attention of the people controlling the formations. While he was speaking, several attacks suddenly came from 3 different directions and attacked him at the same time. Lu Ping cried out in alarm. "Be careful!" A black light was thrown out by Lu Ping, and a black light shroud hung down from the top of Deng Ming's head, enveloping him in the black light. The spells that attacked him from different directions scattered the magic clouds around him, but were finally blocked by the black light shroud. However, Deng Ming still cried out in pain, and it was obvious that he was seriously injured. Lu Ping stared at the dozens of spells attacking him and took big steps forward, shielding Deng Ming behind him. He asked, "How are you?" Deng Ming, who was surrounded by the water-controlling flag, took 2 deep breaths and said, "I won't die yet. The array master outside can monitor us through the formation, so he wanted to kill me. I want to go out and kill him." Ever since Lu Ping had become a Dharma adept, he had never been schemed against like this. The array master hiding outside obviously wanted to use the formation to torture Lu Ping to death. "Senior, don't be rash. Let's not talk about whether or not we can open the 5th formation. Even if we do, who knows how many array masters are waiting outside to ambush us. Furthermore, you may not be a match for them." Upon hearing this, Deng Ming hurriedly tried to dissuade him. Lu Ping did not even turn his head as he asked, "Do you think that the array master outside is a late Dharma adept?" Deng Ming was stunned and said, "Senior, you must be joking. If he really is a great adept, why would he waste time to ambush us with a formation?" Lu Ping suddenly pushed out with both hands, and 2 swords whizzed out from Lu Ping's body. However, Deng Ming only saw one of the blood-red flying swords fly out. After it merged with the previous pair of flying swords, the 3 flying swords danced in the air, forming a thick wall of swords around Lu Ping's body. Deng Ming's expression changed behind Lu Ping. He clearly thought that Lu Ping had to resort to a weaker defense because of the severe loss of his inner yuan. He thought to himself, "Even Senior is at his wit's end. It looks like we're going to die here. But what's going on the other side? There's clearly no defense there, so why are the various spells still unable to get close to him?" At this time, Lu Ping suddenly clenched his hands, and tens of techniques formed in Lu Ping's hands in an instant. Then, Lu Ping suddenly pushed out with both hands, and the tips of the 3 flying swords suddenly pointed outwards. At the same time, on the other side, a blue flying sword finally revealed itself in the void. As Lu Ping suddenly pushed outwards, Deng Ming was instantly shocked by a sound that sounded like a tsunami. The 4 flying swords pushed outwards in unison, and in Deng Ming's eyes, they suddenly turned into a monstrous torrent that wanted to split apart all obstacles in front of it and advance forward. The various spells that had been cast by the 4 activated 5th layers of the formation that were adjacent to the 6th layer of the formation behind him were actually swallowed up by the torrent of swords that exploded out from the 4 flying swords in an instant. Then, they crashed into the protective walls of the 4 formations. In an instant, the attack that Lu Ping had unleashed with his own strength had actually overwhelmed the 4 activated formations. The Kongming faction's formation! Just as Deng Ming was dumbfounded, Lu Ping had already flown up, and a rainbow light shone brightly in his hands. Then, it swept towards the formation in front of him. The 5th formation in front of him began to rapidly melt in the light, and it was a melting that could not be recovered. Rainbow restriction breaking talisman! In an instant, Dang Ming woke up from his previous shock, and he unconsciously shouted. But then, he immediately thought of something and said, "The formation will be destroyed! Destroy the formation, or destroy my life!" Lu Ping jumped out of the hole in the fifth formation, and the thin water-flowing sword first exploded at the hole, to prevent anyone from taking advantage of the situation to ambush him. Then, Lu Ping flashed out of the hole, and his divine sense instantly swept through the entire space between the fourth and fifth formation. Dang Ming was stunned by Lu Ping's question, and then, as if he had thought of something, he no longer cared about his injuries, and took out the animal skin map from his storage magic tool. Then, he carefully dealt with the formation environment in front of him, and then fixed his eyes on the sixth formation. A cry of surprise came from outside the fifth formation behind Dang Ming, accompanied by several roars from the thin water-flowing sword. Obviously, the ambushers did not expect that Lu Ping would have such a heaven-defying talisman like the Rainbow Restriction-Breaking Talisman, and even more did not expect that Lu Ping would use this priceless talisman without hesitation to return so quickly. Subconsciously, they used several attacks, but all of them were easily blocked by Lu Ping. "Wen Yuan, it's you!" A door suddenly opened in the fourth formation, and a black shadow flashed through the door, and then the door closed and disappeared. However, Lu Ping still recognized the man at a glance. It was Mr. Wen Yuan, who was beside Yuan Feifei, and who had entered the Five Elements tortoise chamber with Lu Ping. At the moment when the door closed, Lu Ping also jumped over. While he was still in the air, he had already scattered 3 talismans in his hand. 3 colorful lights flashed, and swept at the fourth formation in front of him. On the fourth formation, 21 nodes suddenly lit up, but after the 5 colored lights swept through, 15 nodes were destroyed, and the fifth formation was still intact. Of course, Lu Ping did not know that the fourth formation had been specially strengthened by Mr. Wen, and its strength was not weaker than the fifth formation that was hastily changed. However, Lu Ping did not want to let Wen Yuan go just like that. After Wen Yuan opened the door of the fourth formation, he immediately activated the fourth formation in the vicinity. Almost 100 spells were concentrated on Lu Ping in an instant. At this moment, Lu Ping no longer had a way out. He seemed to have fallen into an even more desperate situation than before. Chapter 11:28. However, Lu Ping was not a man who would accept his fate. With a loud shout, the blood-orange sword took the lead and created a whirlpool of sword light. The thin water-flowing sword followed closely and joined in the supreme swordsmanship of all rivers run into the sea. This time, the whirlpool of sword light was not a real whirlpool. Instead, it suddenly protruded and formed a spiral. Endless sword light crashed into the protective shield of the tactical deployment. The squeaking sound was compressed in a short time. It felt like it could even cut through people's divine thoughts. However, the protective shield was finally broken by a small gap. However, this was enough. Countless sword lights spun and swarmed toward the gap at a speed that even divine thoughts could not capture. In the blink of an eye, the gap was forcibly opened up into a big hole of half a foot wide. Hundreds of magic lights swept over. The auspicious clouds hanging the cloud sails were scattered, the black light shield of the water-controlling flag was broken, and the blooming white jade lotus light shadow was smashed. It seemed that the protective great magic, water curtain heaven, was also on the verge of collapse. Crack! A crisp sound came, and the blood-orange sword was broken. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, but he did not dare to be careless. The thin water-flowing sword followed up. The tactical deployment finally collapsed under Lu Ping's strong attack. A 5-foot hole was formed in an instant, and a sword light suddenly bloomed out of the hole like a flower. Lu Ping stepped into the fourth tactical deployment. He saw Mr. Wen Yuan, who was trying to escape in panic and disbelief. How could it be? How could it be? How is this possible? How is this possible? How can the formation that I set up be so easily broken by him? How can he have so many high-grade restriction-breaking talismans? A 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman. How is this possible? This person was actually hiding his strength. Just how deep is his strength? This person is young Master Fei Xiang's true rival. Mr. Wen, I trust you've been well since we last met? You've given me a life-or-death gift as soon as we've met. I've enjoyed it very much. Now that you've given me a gift in return, do you have anything else to say? Behind Lu Ping, 12 multicolored lights suddenly shone, forming a 10-feet wide ring behind him. I didn't expect that the old man wouldn't be able to kill you even with such a scheme. However, it may not be possible for you to capture the old man in the Nether Void Array. Mr. Wen took a step back as he spoke. Then, he fused with the protective wall of the third formation. Lu Ping sneered, and the 5-colored light behind him suddenly shot out. A rank 9 white jade lotus suddenly bloomed under his feet. The petals of the lotus were densely packed with runes, and the base of the lotus suddenly extended under Lu Ping's feet along with the 5-colored light. It easily destroyed the third formation in front of him. When Mr. Wen reappeared, he was already behind the third array formation. Previously, he thought he could rely on the array formations to restrain Lu Ping and kill him. But now, the tables had turned. Mr. Wen believed that as long as he focused on escaping, the array formations would still be able to do so. But just as he was about to move, the formation behind him shattered with a loud bang. Mr. Wen didn't even think about it, and the light beneath his feet began to move. However, he was horrified to find that no matter how hard he tried to move, he couldn't move at all. Lu Ping's faint voice was heard from behind him. Do you still think that you can escape, Mr. Wen? Mr. Wen didn't know when he had fallen into a formation space. 12 5-colored lights were twinkling in the air. Mr. Wen took a deep breath. Lu Ping sensed that Mr. Wen's divine sense had swept through the entire space. He couldn't help but smile. Then, he heard Mr. Wen's voice. What an exquisite formation! Is this another one of your hidden cards? Mr. Wen straightened his robes and slowly turned around. He looked at Lu Ping and suddenly smiled. It seems like among the third-generation cultivators, Mr. Wen is still the one who hides the most. Although Mr. Wen has performed very well, to the point that the entire cultivation world has begun to pay attention to you, a rising star from the North Sea, everyone was still fooled by you. You are even more outstanding than they thought. Lu Ping smiled. Lu Ping's expression was tranquil. He listened to Mr. Wen's words and smiled. I am indebted to Mr. Wen's praise. This junior doesn't dare to accept it. But there is one thing that I don't understand. Did Senior attack today because of Brother Yuan's order? Mr. Wen smiled and said, If the old man said that it was because he coveted the remains of the formation master, would you believe him? Lu Ping nodded and said, From the arrangement of the 4th layer's array formation, it's clear that Senior was well prepared. You're clearly here for me. However, Senior seemed to have rushed the 5th layer. Perhaps it's because of the array formation remains. But that was just a spur-of-the-moment decision. Senior is still here for me. Mr. Wen nodded and said, What you said isn't completely correct. But it's not far off. Although it was a spur-of-the-moment idea to snatch the remains, killing you was also a spur-of-the-moment idea. Oh? Lu Ping curiously looked at Mr. Wen and asked, Was it just a spur-of-the-moment idea? Mr. Wen smiled and shook his head. I've always wanted to kill you. And it's not just this old man. Even the elites of the 3rd generation like you wouldn't be able to hold back if you were careless enough to enter a dangerous place. This old man also has the same thought. Mr. Wen shook his head and said, I've always wanted to kill you. Lu Ping snorted and said, That's true. This dark void formation is indeed a dangerous place for this junior. But it's the best location for Senior. Let alone Senior, I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to restrain myself from attacking you. Senior's intention is to share the burden. Mr. Wen smiled bitterly when he saw that Lu Ping was talking about Yuan Feixiang. But he didn't bother to refute. In any case, Lu Ping wouldn't believe him anyway. Moreover, Mr. Wen really had the same idea. Lu Ping had used the natal gentian formation to trap Mr. Wen outside the third layer. But he hadn't noticed that two of the formations had been forcibly broken by Lu Ping's forbidden talismans. Gradually, the surrounding formations began to change color. "Senior, how are you? Let's go." The destruction of the array formation has already alerted the array formation masters who are cultivating in the array formation. They are already rushing over here. The color of the array formation on the periphery has already changed. This means that they are already trying to influence us through the connected array formation system. Now, the outermost area must have already been sealed. Mr. Wen couldn't hear Deng Ming's shout inside the natal gentian formation. But Lu Ping could hear it very clearly. He understood that Mr. Wen was stalling for time. A great formation master had almost consigned Lu Ping to eternal damnation. Lu Ping didn't have many forbidden talismans to waste if more masters like Mr. Wen were to come. Suddenly, a multicolored light fell from the sky above the formation and attacked Mr. Wen from behind. Mr. Wen had secretly broken free from the formation. He was a mid-dharma adept. After all, he had gone through the 5 elements hidden tortoise. His cultivation had been further consolidated, and his strength was not low. Although the natal gentian formation was far more exquisite than he had expected, it was still praiseworthy for him to be able to break free from the shackles of the formation. It was impossible for him to evade Lu Ping's attack. Mr. Wen dodged the attack from the back in an extremely disheveled manner. It was only then that he realized that there was a strange power in the formation space that was constantly affecting his movements. Otherwise, how could a mid-dharma adept like him be so disheveled when he was struck by the multicolored radiance? A formation diagram. That's right. A formation diagram is required for a formation master who isn't a formation master to display its full power in the hands of an ordinary dharma adept. Mr. Wen was worthy of being one of the top formation masters in the world of practitioners. He quickly figured out the problem. He recalled the white jade lotus under Lu Ping's feet. He couldn't help but exclaim, "White jade lotus! It's a 9th rank white jade lotus! What a good formation diagram!" "Your Excellency is very lucky." Lu Ping ignored him and 2 more 5-colored lights fell from the sky. This time, Mr. Wen finally saw a fist-sized round bead in the middle of the lights. The 3 origin chin beads attacked Mr. Wen from the front and back. His surroundings were shrouded in a hazy white light. Mr. Wen suddenly felt like he couldn't move an inch no matter which direction he chose. It was as if he had sunk into the water and had to swim against the current. However, Mr. Wen wasn't one to wait for death. An umbrella suddenly appeared in his hand and he opened it. With the umbrella handle as the center, 8 ribs of the umbrella opened up and an array formation was formed. Then, the array formation forcibly embedded itself into Lu Ping's natal origin time array. The 3 elemental time beads that were attacking from the front and back were suddenly pulled by a strange force that suddenly appeared. They whizzed past the 2 sides of the opened umbrella, not hitting Mr. Chinese. What a brilliant formation diagram! It was able to forcibly break Mr. Wen's control over the gentian formation. The formation diagram on the umbrella had been integrated into the gentian formation, and had evaded the attack of the gentian pearls. The formation diagram was exquisite, but the gentian formation was Lu Ping's formation diagram. Moreover, the formation diagram was one of the best in the world of practitioners. Mr. Wen was able to insert himself into the formation diagram, but Lu Ping's all-out counterattack was only able to drive the umbrella out of the formation diagram in a flash. Lu Ping pointed at the white jade lotus under his feet, and a white light emerged from the formation diagram. Mr. Wen couldn't interfere with the operation of the gentian formation anymore. So, he could only use his life treasure to block the attack of the gentian pearls. Ding! 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 Mr. Wen was finally able to block the attacks of the 3 primary time beads. But he didn't know when 3 more primary time beads had fallen from the air of the formation space. This made the number of primary time beads besieging Mr. Wen to reach 6. You really think highly of the old man. But do you think that you can still get out of the nether void formation? Sooner or later, you'll have to accompany the old man. Lu Ping looked around the formation diagram after he had severely injured Mr. Wen and stopped him from self-destructing. He found that the first, second, and third layers of the nether void formation were flashing with red light. Moreover, the red light was spreading toward the inner layers of the formation diagram. It seemed as if the formation diagram was going to surround the formation diagram. Chapter 11:29. Even though Mr. Wen was a grandmaster in matrices, his abilities were considered decent among the mid-Dharma adepts. It was a pity that he was up against Lu Ping, who was trying his best to cut through the Gordian knot, as well as the gentian formation that Lu Ping still did not know what it was. Therefore, when Mr. Wen was surrounded by Lu Ping's natal gentian formation, his fate was basically set in stone. After killing Mr. Wen, Lu Ping retracted the natal elemental formation and saw Deng Mingjing pacing back and forth anxiously after the third array formation was destroyed by Lu Ping. Deng Mingjing kept looking back at the fifth array formation that was destroyed by the seven-colored restriction-breaking charm, the fourth array formation that was destroyed by Lu Ping's restriction-breaking charm, and the third array formation that was destroyed by the natal elemental formation. "Senior, we're in trouble!" Lu Ping followed Deng Ming's finger and found that the second formation behind him had turned bright red. Around the formation that had been destroyed by Lu Ping, the third, fourth, and fifth formations had also been dyed red. "Can we still get out now?" Deng Ming smiled bitterly and said, "We can't get out. 3 formations have been destroyed in a row, and it's obvious that the matrices in the Forgotten Kong Ming formation have noticed us. The Forgotten Kong Ming formation was originally a complete system. Even though it's only a broken formation now, the matrices in the formation can still affect our surroundings from afar. Just like the matrices that were killed by you just now, he was only behind one formation, but he was able to control several formations around him to attack you at the same time. Does that mean that the formations in front of us have been altered and can't be destroyed? That's not it. It's just that the process will be difficult, and what we need now is time. The matrices that are rushing here are obviously doing the same. They're trying to delay us. How many matrices are there?" Deng Ming looked at the second formation and saw that it was the color of blood. He sighed and said, "There are many. Senior has destroyed 3 formations in a row, and all of them are damaged beyond repair. This has already angered everyone." Lu Ping's expression changed. He had already experienced the terror of the matrices in the Forgotten Kong Ming formation. If it weren't for the rainbow charm, he would not have been able to escape from Mr. Wen's trap at the 5th formation. "Senior, the only thing we can do now is to escape as soon as possible. We can't run away. We can hide in the formation and hide our identities as the ones who destroyed it. That way, we might be able to survive." Lu Ping took a deep breath and said, "You're right. Let's go to the 6th formation." Lu Ping quickly walked towards the array formation. However, several brilliant lights flashed before the fireballs could fall on the formation tools. Then, the fireballs were shattered in midair. Lu Ping's decisiveness in shattering the array formation's fireball had clearly caused the cultivator controlling the array formation to be wary. Lu Ping could also tell from the cultivator's 2 attacks that his attainments in array formations weren't too high. At least, he couldn't be compared to Mr. Wen, who could easily suppress Lu Ping's array formation. Lu Ping's cultivation in array formations couldn't be compared to Mr. Wen's. At this moment, Deng Ming suddenly shouted from behind, "Oh no!" Lu Ping was startled. "What's wrong?" Deng Ming pointed at the 6th formation and said, "Someone has already discovered our intentions and is already using the transmission of the formation to stop Junior from breaking the formation." Lu Ping looked at the 6th formation. The protective wall of the 6th formation had been dyed with a layer of faint red radiance. Moreover, the red radiance seemed to be getting thicker as time passed. "How's the arrangement of the formation going?" "According to the animal skin map, it's almost done. But I'm afraid that there will be many more variables." Deng Ming's voice had barely faded when the other 2 formations on the 5th layer were destroyed. Then, they joined forces with the previous formation to launch a pincer attack. The mastery of these two formations was clearly above the mastery of the previous one. Not only were the magic spells condensed in the formation more ferocious, but they were also linked together in an extremely dense manner. The mastery of the previous mastery of the formation couldn't be compared. Lu Ping didn't know how many mastery masters were behind these two newly activated formations. But there was no doubt that the situation of these two masters was worsening. Fortunately, with Deng Ming's reminder, Lu Ping had already prepared for a rainy day and used the art of sea deception to hide their appearances when the two began to set up the sixth formation. Now, they were not afraid of being recognized and hunted down in the future. Lu Ping used the seeping sword technique with his pair of flying swords. A dense wall of sword light was formed behind the two of them. All the attacks were dissolved. Lu Ping seemed to feel that it wasn't enough. He stretched out his hand and pulled from left to right. A curtain was immediately pulled open. Auspicious clouds began to spread outwards. The seeping sword technique formed a wall of fog. All the attacks were dissolved before they could even break through the fog. Even if they broke through the obstruction of the fog, they were like clay oxen entering the sea. No one knew what was behind the fog. Lu Ping's expression was calm as he said, "You have to hurry up," Deng Ming said. "The sixth layer of the nether void array is already considered the inner area. Even the top master of formations in the cultivation world would have to spend a lot of effort to break it without a method. This is why once a master of formations breaks the sixth and seventh formation, they can be called a master of formations. Therefore, these masters of formations will at most come from the fifth layer. It's almost impossible for them to directly run in front of us and attack us." Lu Ping watched as Deng Ming spoke and connected the formation tools that had been set up. Finally, they gathered on the formation plate in his hand. Then, like cutting a piece of meat, he hesitantly inserted a top-quality spirit stone from the corpse into the formation plate. Lu Ping saw all this. He smiled and said, "Now there are 6 formations behind us that have been activated. If you don't hurry up, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold them off." Only then did Deng Ming realize that the reason why he could finish setting up the formation so easily was because Lu Ping had taken on all the disturbances from the outside. At this time, the 6th formation in front of them had been dyed with a faint layer of pink. Deng Ming did not dare to hesitate and said, "Now is the time. Senior, please help me." Without saying anything, Lu Ping slapped a 5-color restriction-breaking talisman on the protective wall of the formation. The layer of pink light used to strengthen the formation's defense suddenly collapsed under the 5-color light, and then the 6th formation itself began to become chaotic. Deng Ming took this opportunity to activate the array formation that he had set up. An array of light immediately appeared on the protective wall of the 6th array formation. The ray of light moved in a straight line from bottom to top, and only stopped when it reached a length of 5 feet. Then, under the astonished gazes of the two, it began to shrink. Deng Ming seemed to suddenly think of something, and he shouted, "Senior, this light is the gap of the door. You only need to open it." Lu Ping, who was gritting his teeth and taking out the second 5-color restriction-breaking talisman, was stunned. He waved his hand behind him, and the 2 flying swords flew back and inserted into the gap. A series of deafening roars suddenly sounded behind him, giving Deng Ming a fright. Only then did he know that although Lu Ping had been calm on the surface, in fact, he had blocked such a fierce attack. The 2 flying swords were pried upward, and the gap was indeed opened by 3 inches. Lu Ping was delighted. He suddenly clenched his hands, and 2 big hands of Yuan Qi immediately grabbed the gap. Then Lu Ping suddenly pulled back, and the Fa Xiang behind him surged out like a volcanic eruption. With a sound like tearing cloth, a door was suddenly torn from the protective wall. Chapter 1130. Hurry up! While Lu Ping was shouting, Deng Ming hurriedly gathered up as many tools as he could and plunged into the 6th array formation. At the same time, the cloud sail behind Lu Ping could no longer withstand the combined attacks of the array formation masters. A badly wounded golden rock wobbled as it held a small banner in its hand. The golden rock flew into Lu Ping's hand before the auspicious clouds in the sky could disperse. Lu Ping looked back in silence, then turned and entered the sixth array formation. The portal that Lu Ping had forcibly pulled open was immediately reopened. The light from the 5-foot-long gap began to disappear at the same time from both ends. The sixth array formation's protective wall was finally closed. Then, an overwhelming barrage of spells smashed into the protective wall of the sixth array formation and disappeared. Lu Ping had just turned around to enter the sixth array formation when he heard Dang Ning's miserable howl. Lu Ping knew something was wrong. A black light flashed in his hand and the water-controlling flag floated above Dang Ning's head, blocking a cyan-colored blade of light. Lu Ping's face darkened. This attack was much stronger than the one he encountered at the fifth layer of the array formation. Clearly, the sixth layer of the array formation was far more powerful than the fifth layer of the array formation. Furthermore, the cultivator who was able to sense the sixth layer of the array formation in such a short period of time must also be very skilled in the art of array formations. However, when Lu Ping stepped into the sixth layer of the array formation, he suddenly froze. Then, he looked around the entire array formation space as if he was trying to confirm something. Then, he heaved a sigh of relief and his expression relaxed again. How is it? Lu Ping's divine thought swept in an instant, and found that there were 3 arrays on the 6th level adjacent to the one they had broken. 2 of them had a clear red light on the surface. One of them was the one that had previously condensed the spell to injure Deng Ning. The other 2 arrays were only faintly dyed red. Obviously, someone had just noticed this place. Not bad. I didn't expect that someone had already gone around to the 6th array formation to surround us. Obviously, the person's attainment in array formation is very high. I don't know how many layers of arrays there are, but he can actually condense a spell to attack. Deng Ming was hit before mainly because he was caught off guard. He did not expect that someone would ambush in the 6th array formation so quickly. However, Lu Ping heard something from Deng Ming's words and said in a sharp voice, "You mean there's no one behind the array formation that attacked you?" Deng Ming took out a medicinal pellet from a jade bottle that Lu Ping tossed over and swallowed it. He mumbled, "That's right. He's another top-notch array formation grandmaster. He's able to control the 6th floor's array formation through the layers of array formations. What bad luck." Deng Ming got up from the ground and was about to go to the 7th array formation with the water-controlling flag. Unexpectedly, he was stopped by Lu Ping and said, "Wait." Deng Ming looked at Lu Ping in confusion and said, "What's wrong?" Lu Ping said, "Do you know how to set up an array formation to isolate the other party's surveillance? Always letting these array formation masters monitor us through the Kongming array formation, I always feel restricted." Deng Ming's face was still filled with confusion. He said, "This kind of formation is simple, but it's useless. We will have to open the 7th formation sooner or later. Once we open the new formation, our whereabouts will be discovered." Lu Ping nodded and said, "You set it up." Deng Ming did not understand, but he still set up a simple array formation according to Lu Ping's instructions. Then he turned to look at Lu Ping and said, "Senior, the array formation has been set up, but it is limited to this array space. Once we touch the array formation, we will be noticed by other array formation masters." Lu Ping nodded slightly and said with a smile, "I know." Then, Lu Ping looked around, waved his hand, and a longsword shot out. The longsword split into 5 sword rays in midair and slashed at the surrounding 6th layer array formations, as well as the 7th layer array formation in front of him. Boom! Clearly, Lu Ping's 1 sword 5 slashes was extremely powerful. Even the 7th layer array formation's protective wall was shaken by the slash, let alone the other 4 6th layer array formations. Lu Ping looked at Deng Ming, who was getting more and more confused, and said with a smile, "After you see what I show, I'm afraid you will have to join Jinling forever." Deng Ming was stunned, but he also knew that this was a matter of life and death. Naturally, Lu Ping would not joke around with his life. So what Lu Ping showed next would be a trump card that Jinling would not reveal in front of others. After seeing it, he would either join Jinling or be killed by Lu Ping. Deng Ming nodded solemnly and said, "Junior understands. Senior, feel free to do as you please." Lu Ping smiled and slashed out with the flying sword in his hand again. The sword light split into 5 and slashed at the 5 array formations in front of him. Deng Ming, who was watching from the side, could clearly see that these 5 sword lights were hitting the exact same spots as the previous 5 sword lights. He couldn't help but gasp in shock. But then, Lu Ping seemed to be interested in this game. The flying sword in his hand flew out again. It was the same flying sword and 5 sword lights hit the same place. This time, even Deng Ming could not understand it. However, right after the 3 strikes, Lu Ping's hand suddenly formed a series of hand seals and struck at the array formation closest to him. Then, he formed another hand seal and struck out another 5 hand seals in a row, all of them striking at the same spot where the 3 sword lights had struck. At this time, Deng Ming finally understood that Lu Ping's 3 slashes were obviously for a reason. After Lu Ping's 5 mysterious seals were imprinted on the 5 protective walls of the arrays in front of him, the entire array space suddenly shook. The gradually emerging red light gradually began to fade. It seemed that the 5 arrays suddenly isolated the array formation masters who tried to peep through the connection of the nether void array. However, Lu Ping's actions were far from finished. The moment the red light faded, Lu Ping made several more seals with his hands. At the same time, his eyes suddenly shot out a dense green light, looking at the 5 protective walls of the arrays one by one. Every time the 3 pure eyes seemed to detect something, Lu Ping would hit the protective walls of the arrays with his palm. Then, a scene that surprised Deng Ming and made him ecstatic appeared. Suddenly, more than a dozen flickering lights appeared on the protective walls of the arrays. They were the nodes of the arrays that Deng Ming had to spend a lot of effort to find every time he cracked the arrays. At this time, they were easily displayed on the arrays. However, these nodes of the arrays were now moving on the protective walls at a slow speed. However, after all, Deng Ming was a master of arrays. In a moment, he noticed the pattern of these nodes of the arrays. He was delighted and hurriedly recorded it. When he returned here in the future, he could dissect the composition of these arrays by folding the nodes of the arrays and turn it into his own accumulation of knowledge in arrays. The green light in Lu Ping's eyes shone brighter. At this time, Deng Ming saw Lu Ping suddenly pointing with one finger. A node of the light spot on the protective wall of the arrays on the left suddenly shone brightly, but it stopped moving there. Then, Lu Ping's finger pointed on the protective wall of the second array. Another moving light spot suddenly stopped and shone brightly. Lu Ping pointed 5 times in a row. Each node of the arrays on the protective walls of the 5 arrays was touched and shone brightly. This is... At this time, Deng Ming was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He saw Lu Ping fumble around in his storage magic tool for a moment. Then, he opened his hand and 8 crystal-clear stone beads rolled in his palm. He said, "Do you recognize these things?" Looking at Deng Ming's confused eyes, Lu Ping chuckled and said, "Do you know about the Kongming essence?" "What?" It would be a joke to say that Deng Ming didn't know about the Kongming essence. How many array masters in the world of cultivation didn't know about the Kongming essence? However, since the destruction of the Kongming faction, no one had ever seen the Kongming essence with their own eyes. Lu Ping no longer paid attention to Deng Ming, who was at a loss of what to do. Instead, he picked 5 out of the 8 Void Ming essences and shot them at the 5 glowing spots on the 5 array formations. As soon as the Void Ming essences came into contact with the glowing spots, the Void Ming essences fused into the glowing spots. Then, the glowing spots quickly dimmed to the same level as the other nodes on the 5 array formations. Then, all the nodes on the 5 array formations fell silent. Deng Ming was confused and he asked Lu Ping, "Senior, this is... Pop!" Before he finished speaking, a soft sound rang out, and 5 rays of light shot out from the 5 protective walls of the array formation. Deng Ming was stunned. Although the nodes of the array formation had disappeared from the protective walls, according to his calculations of the connection point of the array formation where he first saw the node of the array formation, the rays of light came from the spot where the speck of light had integrated with the Kongming essence. After the 5 rays of light shot out, they suddenly split into densely packed threads in midair and intertwined with each other, gradually forming a set of complex patterns. Deng Ming's eyes widened and he said, This is a teleportation array? Lu Ping, who was beside him, patted his shoulder and said, Hee, let's go! Deng Ming clearly hadn't recovered from the magical method of hiding an array within an array. When he heard Lu Ping's words, he casually asked, Where are we going? However, he had already been pulled up by Lu Ping and pulled into the teleportation array suspended in midair by countless threads of light. Deng Ming suddenly came to his senses and said happily, Are we going to the Kongming ruins? The teleportation array suddenly opened the moment the two of them entered. As the white light flickered, not only did the two of them disappear, but also Deng Ming's surprised words. After a few flashes of light, Lu Ping and Deng Ming had already disappeared from the array formation. At the same time, the teleportation array formation that was formed from countless threads of light had also disappeared, leaving behind an empty space as if no one had ever been there. At the same time, the array formation's protective walls had recovered at some point, and were glowing with a reddish hue. Chapter 1131. Less than an hour after Lu Ping and Deng Ming disappeared, one of the 6 formations, including the 6th formation that Lu Ping and the others had opened, suddenly flashed with a blood-red light. Afterwards, the red light gradually isolated the silhouette of a person in the center. The silhouette slowly walked out of the red light. It was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. After the old man walked out, the dazzling red light gradually receded. It was still a blue formation wall, but not even a trace of red light could be seen. The old man looked around the formation space, and his expression became more and more shocked. It seemed that there was something extremely difficult for him to understand. Brother Ji, what happened just now? How come 3 spirit arrays were destroyed? A voice came from behind another formation. As soon as the voice finished speaking, a door appeared on the formation wall, and a black-robed old man walked out from it. After the black-robed old man walked out, the door on the formation wall quickly closed. At the same time, the red light on the formation wall began to dissipate. You saw it too. The old man just arrived, and he was also confused. However, this place is very strange. The two of them should have arrived here, but then disappeared. The black-robed Laozi looked at the formation space, and a confused expression appeared on his face. That's strange. Could it be that the two of them opened another formation and escaped? The old man surnamed Ji wasn't too sure. It's hard to say, but it's not very likely. If the two of them really have that kind of ability, then their mastery of formations is even greater than ours. Do you think it's possible? The black-robed Laozi said. That's true. In the cultivation world, there aren't many who can surpass us in formations. Even if there are, their strength is limited. It wouldn't be easy for them to escape from the nether void formation without us knowing. Another old man walked out from behind the formation and said, I remember that in this generation, there was a formation master from a medium-sized sect. He was quite skilled in formations, and the old man met him once. That person's sect seemed to have been destroyed, and in order to avoid being hunted down, he fled to the South Sea and hid here. After that, he stayed here for dozens of years to study formations. In the past 10 years, we haven't heard much about him. I wonder if this has anything to do with him? The 7th formation suddenly rumbled. The 3 of them stopped talking and looked at the formation wall. A skinny old man squeezed out from the 7th formation and said, There are dozens of formations in the 7th layer of the nether void formation, and every one of them has a unique way of entering and exiting. It's only because of the old man's stature. If it was a fatty, they wouldn't be able to enter even if they broke the formation. The old man looked at the 3 of them and said, There aren't any signs of people coming out of the formation recently. The old man thought that they would come to the inner layer of the nether void formation, so he spent a bit of effort to get here. He didn't think that he would come up empty. The three of them nodded. The skinny old man said, "How is it? Is there any news of the people fighting?" The third old man shook his head and said, "This is the strange part. Neither side left any clues behind. After chasing them all the way here, the one who once seemed to have disappeared." The skinny old man seemed to have a higher status than the other three. Hearing this, he said, "There's a master." Guess who did the old man discover that had entered the nether void formation? Without waiting for the other three to ask, the skinny old man said, "The lackey of the Yuan family, Wen Yuan of the Wen family. It's him. If it's him, it's possible. That person can be considered to have a long history of learning, and his attainments in formations are extremely profound. Even we have to admit that his level is not inferior to ours. After all these years, it's not impossible for him to surpass us." "I don't think so. Wen Yuan is considered to be the best in the formation among the second-generation adepts. If he really was the one who set up the formation here to kill someone, with such a geographical advantage, he might even be able to deal with a late Dharma adept. How could he have been killed so easily?" The four of them looked at each other again, as if they had fallen into a dead end. At this moment, the sixth formation that Lu Ping and Dang Ming had broken earlier suddenly flashed. A monk with messy hair and a pair of blurred eyes, as if he was drunk, stumbled and crashed into the sixth formation wall. He looked at the four of them and said, "What if he had a talisman? A 7-colored talisman." "What? A 7-colored talisman? That's why. That makes sense. No wonder he was able to break 3 formations in such a short period of time. I heard that Wen Yuan is also at the mid-Dharma stage. However, he is an expert in matrices, so there is a limit to how strong he is. If he really is ambushing someone, and that person has a talismanship-breaking talisman, then I'm afraid it's not just that he has the means to deal with grand adepts. Instead, even an early Dharma adept of the 3rd generation might be able to defeat him. After all, he is a mid-Dharma adept. I heard from the disciples that he had appeared in the 5 Elements tortoise a few days ago. He must have gone to strengthen his training. In that case, even if someone used a talisman to break the formation, I'm afraid that the person would not be too weak to kill him. Oh, the old man has also heard about this. I heard that the peacock royalty suffered a great loss this time in the 5 Elements tortoise. A few of their juniors were tricked and almost died. A few elders rushed to rescue them, but after the tortoise disappeared into the void, they were strangely surrounded by Mara's army. Out of the 3 late Dharma adepts, 2 were actually killed. TSK, this peacock royalty is going to suffer a lot. The old man has also heard about this. I heard that the Yuan family, the Lingyan Valley, and the Wishing School have joined forces to plot for the peacock royalty's natal plume feather. The peacock royalty is not going to suffer a loss. Even if they lost 2 great Dharma adepts, with the peacock royalty's strength, not to mention 2 great Dharma adepts, even 2 pure Yang Laozu would not be a problem. When Lu Ping and Deng Ming's vision became clear again, they were already on an island. "Senior, don't tell me this is..." Lu Ping chuckled and said, "Perhaps. After all, this is my first time here as well. But since you've already joined our sect, you should change the way you address me. You and I are of the same generation. I entered the sect before you, so you can just call me Brother Lu." Deng Ming wanted to postpone it, but Lu Ping had already said, "That's settled then," rejecting his request. Among the 3 generations of adepts in the Jinling sect, there was now one more formation master who was about to become a Grand Master. The 2 of them were on a stone platform in a remote area of the island. At this time, there was a 5-pointed star teleportation pattern on the stone platform. Deng Ming came down from the stone platform and saw Lu Ping squatting down on the stone platform. Then, he formed a seal with both hands and pressed it towards the teleportation formation on the stone platform. 5 rays of light burst out from the 5 corners of the teleportation formation. When the light dissipated, 5 crystal-clear beads appeared in the 5 corners. They were the spatial essence that Lu Ping had integrated into the 5 nodes of the formation. The island was full of broken walls and ruins left behind by spells and magic powers. Due to the passage of time, it had gradually become desolate. Many places were covered by thick dust, and weeds and vines grew everywhere. But one could still see how magnificent the layout and buildings of the island were. Unlike Lu Ping, Deng Ming came here with a different purpose. He came here with the mentality of a pilgrimage. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and a spatial door suddenly opened. Under Deng Ming's surprised gaze, a huge white tiger demon walked out. This giant tiger's cultivation was close to the late stage of the core forging realm. The moment it appeared, it bared its fangs at Deng Ming, and a murderous aura rushed towards him. In addition to formations, Deng Ming naturally had some knowledge. He was surprised and said, "Hanging Eyes White Tiger Clan?" Lu Ping patted the giant tiger's head, and a golden light rose around the giant tiger. An 11 or 12-year-old child appeared in front of Deng Ming. Lu Ping introduced him. "This is Lu Xiaohai, my follower. Xiaohai, this is your martial Uncle Deng." Lu Xiaohai glanced at Deng Ming and said, "He's so weak. Although his cultivation is higher than Xiaohai's, Xiaohai can definitely beat him to a pulp." Deng Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He saw Lu Ping patting the child's head and said with a smile, "You naughty child, your martial Uncle Deng is a dignified formation master. How can a guy with a brain full of muscles like you understand?" As they spoke, a few more children came out of the space portal. Deng Ming could see clearly that these people were all surging with demonic qi. They were undoubtedly cultivators of the demon clan. Samling, Lu Qiner, Debao, Peach Blossom, Amethyst Queen Bee, and others were all released by Lu Ping. Lu Degui was sleeping because he had received Xiang Shiping's bloodline secret technique. Once he woke up, his aptitude would be greatly improved. Deng Ming said in disbelief, Senior brother Lu, are they all your followers?" Deng Ming was shocked in his heart. What kind of origin are these demon cultivators in front of me? The more I look at those 3 children, the more they look like green sea snakes. Am I hallucinating? And that rat demon, is that a spirit-seeking rat? A shape-shifting spirit-seeking rat? What a joke! Shouldn't it be from the embroidered rat clan in the Endless Mountains? But the shape-shifting cultivators of the embroidered rat clan are all handsome and dignified. How could this rat demon be so fat? There was also the phoenix, the little girl, Lu Taohua, and the little girl with 2 pairs of wings, Lu Xilan. Who were these people? Just as Deng Ming was pondering, Lu Ping's voice sounded in his ear. "Junior brother Deng, I'm afraid we'll have to stay on Kongming Island for some time. Take these troublesome things and explore the island first." When the Kongming sect was destroyed, although Lao Tzu looted everything in the Kongming sect, there's no guarantee that he didn't leave anything behind. The spiritual qi here is abundant, so the Kongming sect's spiritual veins are not damaged. You can also cultivate here for a period of time and focus on studying the formation inheritance you've obtained. I need to cultivate here for a period of time so that I can pass my first thunder tribulation. Chapter 1132. There was no doubt that Lu Ping had come to the South China Sea at the expense of delaying his own advancement to the mid-Dharma stage. Although the Kongming sect's original location had been breached by the cultivators of the various overseas sects, the Kongming sect's protective formation system, which was made up of countless formations, was already showing signs of collapsing. Although the cultivators of the various sects were confident that they could break the protective formation, they did not have the slightest confidence that they would be able to escape with their lives if the formation were to collapse. As a result, although much of the Kongming Island had been plundered in a hurry, items that were difficult to take away, such as the spirit veins and mineral veins, had been left behind. For thousands of years, no one had been able to enter the Kongming Island. At this time, the Kongming Island was supported by at least 2 or 3 large spirit veins. not only did the protective formation that had originally collapsed continue to exist in a strange way, but the island was also filled with plants that grew wildly. Among them, there was no lack of spirit herbs. Although these rare items were extremely rare, they were of sufficient age, and the proportion of spirit herbs that were 3,000 years old was considered high. Furthermore, although the treasures on the island had almost been completely plundered by the various overseas sects, there was no guarantee that there were no treasures left behind. With the formation master, Deng Ming, leading Sam Ling and the rest on the island to search for treasures, even if they were to encounter any traps, they would be able to deal with them easily. At this time, Lu Ping had already arrived at the center of the Kongming Island. This was the place where the spirit veins of the Kongming Island were concentrated. The sky was covered with a layer of white light. The Kongming Palace here had long been destroyed in the great battle of the Kongming sect, and the cultivators of the various sects had naturally put in a lot of effort to excavate the central palace of the Kongming sect. Even the foundations of the palace had been dug out. However, who would have thought that the most important treasures of the Kongming sect were not in the central palace, nor were they in the so-called Heaven's Inheritance? Looking at the mess on the ground, Lu Ping began to slowly walk around the ruins of the central palace. After a while, he finally found the remnants of the formation that had originally surrounded the central palace. Lu Ping formed a seal with both hands and struck the broken array. The broken array suddenly shook and actually lit up with a silver light. Lu Ping was immediately delighted. The Kongming sect had indeed reached the pinnacle of formations. This formation used to hide treasures had been disguised as an incomplete formation, and then a similar formation had been grafted onto this incomplete formation. The two formations had combined to form a complete defensive formation around the central palace. When the invading Dharma adepts from the various sects had destroyed the defensive array, all their attention had been on the central palace. They did not know that the array that had been destroyed was actually a complete array. However, in the eyes of the Dharma adepts, it was not worth paying attention to. Just as Lu Ping activated the incomplete formation according to the records left behind in Kong Wu's inheritance, the entire formation that surrounded the central palace suddenly flashed with a silver light. Two rays of green light shot out from Lu Ping's eyes and penetrated the silver light. After a while, he seemed to have discovered something. His finger quickly pointed out, and there was a crisp, ding sound. Then, Lu Ping used his spatial powers and appeared on the other side of the formation in a flash. Lu Ping estimated his position, and the moment he appeared on the other side of the formation, he once again used his 3 pure eyes. It was as if he was racing against time. In an instant, Lu Ping's finger pointed out again, and a crisp, ding sound rang out from the silver light. Using the same method, Lu Ping very quickly appeared on the third spot and found a spot in the formation that was covered by the silver light. Then, he used his finger to point at the spot in the formation that was covered by the silver light. At this moment, Lu Ping opened his palm, and 3 empty spirits appeared in Lu Ping's hand. Although the 8 empty spirits in Lu Ping's hand were similar, if Deng Ming was here, he would actually be able to tell that these 8 empty spirits were actually different. And at this moment, the 3 empty spirits in Lu Ping's hand were actually different from the 5 empty spirits that Lu Ping had used to use the teleportation array. The 3 empty spirits were thrown out by Lu Ping, and they entered the formation that was covered by the silver light. At the 3 spots that Lu Ping had pointed at, the silver light that had been activated from the formation immediately split into 3 parts and returned to the positions of the 3 empty spirits. After the silver light had completely disappeared, there were only 3 bright silver lights left on the entire formation. These lights were like threads, intertwining in the air above the ruins of the central netherworld hall, forming the silhouette of a silver box that was 3 feet wide and 3 square feet wide. Lu Ping sighed in his heart. Who would have thought that the empty spirit sect would actually hide such a small space in the sky above the empty spirit hall? It was so exquisite and unimaginable. Without activating the formation, Even the Dharma adepts and formation masters of the various sects who had participated in the destruction of the empty spirit hall thousands of years ago would not have realized that this treasure, which the empty spirit sect had called the foundation of the sect, was hidden right under their noses. Lu Ping slowly floated up into the air and arrived at the array formation space formed by the silver thread treasure box. On the surface of the box were 4 nodes of the array formation space. Back then, the 4 array formation grandmasters of the Kong Ming sect had been in charge of the Kong Ming sect's Kong Ming essence, and each of them had infused one of the Kong Ming essence into one of the nodes of the array formation space. However, this was only a method of opening the space without destroying the exquisite space. The empty spirit sect naturally knew that in such a critical situation, it was impossible to gather the 4 formation masters who had been in charge of the empty spirit hall together. Hence, they naturally had other methods of opening the space. However, this method required the destruction of the space. Naturally, Lu Ping wouldn't feel the slightest bit of heartache over the destruction of this exquisite array formation. He slapped his hands on the array formation, and the silver lines on the spatial treasure box immediately began to break. Amidst a series of crackling sounds, the space around the spatial treasure box exploded. Spatial cracks and fragments spread out in all directions, but they were firmly stopped by a light barrier in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping's divine will risked being swallowed by the cracks in the space to enter. Then, his eyes brightened, and his right hand suddenly reached in. A golden scale the size of a palm was pulled out by Lu Ping from the broken space. This was it. Although Lu Ping had been trying his best to remain calm, when he saw this item, his heart could not help but beat fiercely twice. As soon as Lu Ping held the golden scale in his hand, the array formation surrounding the central Kong Ming Hall instantly crumbled. Lu Ping did not care at all. He focused all his attention on the scale. The moment the scale appeared, the mysterious power that originated from his bloodline caused the Dharma form within Lu Ping's core space to shake. The entire Dharma form immediately began to roar and fly around in the core space. If it were not for Lu Ping's efforts to suppress it, the Dharma form would have definitely flown into the sky. According to the legends, this scale was something that Jiao Daoren had removed from the scale of his true soul body. It seemed that this legend was most likely true. However, what Lu Ping cared about was not the scale. Instead, it was the 2 secret techniques recorded on it. They were the foundation for the empty spirit sect to reach the peak of the cultivation world through formations. One of them was already famous in the cultivation world, and that was the Kong Ming sect's divine sense carving secret technique, which was passed down through the direct line of inheritance. Generally speaking, there were only 3 methods of array formation masters in the cultivation world. The first method was to use a combination of an array disk and an array formation tool. This method was the most common, and it was also the inevitable choice for many sect-protecting arrays and powerful arrays. The second method was to use restrictions to set up formations. This method was much rarer. It was fast but not long-lasting. It was usually used in emergency situations. Moreover, the range of the formation was small. The formation was not powerful, but it was difficult to deal with. Of course, there were also those who combined these 2 methods to take advantage of the strengths of the 2. However, this method was not considered the third method. The true third formation method was the Kong Ming faction's heirloom technique, which had long since been lost in the world of cultivation. The foundation of this secret technique was the Kong Ming faction's divine sense carving technique. The pinnacle of this technique was the Kong Ming faction's 32 Kong Ming essence. The other inheritance was the 9 forbidden treasures. It was true that there were only 9 forbidden treasures. However, strictly speaking, these 9 forbidden treasures were the reason why the Empty Spirit sect was known as the Holy Land of Formations. The Empty Spirit sect was unable to use these 9 forbidden treasures for weapon refinement. However, they discovered that the 9 forbidden treasures seemed to be closely related to formations. Later on, the formation masters of the Empty Spirit sect not only evolved the 9 forbidden treasures into 9 formations, but also used these 9 formations as the foundation to extend a series of formations that were famous in the cultivation world. They also created the Empty Spirit Sex Sect Protecting Formation System. The Empty Spirit Sex Formation System was divided into 10 layers. The innermost layer around Empty Spirit Island, which was the 10th layer from the outside in, was actually the 9 forbidden treasures recorded on the scale. The best formation masters of the various sects who studied the secrets of formations in the Empty Spirit Array had only managed to understand the 9th layer's extension of the formation. They were still unable to understand the 9 fundamental formations of the 10th layer. What Lu Ping needed were the 9 forbidden treasures, not the 9 fundamental formations of Empty Spirit Island that had evolved from the 9 forbidden treasures. However, after learning about the 9 forbidden treasures, it was naturally easy to understand the secrets of the 9 fundamental formations. Of course, it was easy for formation masters. Lu Ping knew nothing about it. Although Lu Ping did not know much about formations, he had the formation plate in hand. He had the ability to imitate the formation plate. He found a formation plate in Mr. Wen's storage instrument that looked decent. Then, like a cat trying to imitate a tiger, he set up a simple formation in the ruins of the Empty Spirit Hall. The location of the Empty Spirit Hall was also where the spirit veins of Empty Spirit Island were most concentrated. The spirit chi in the area was very rich, and it could be used as a temporary place for him to train. Now that Lu Ping had achieved his goal in coming to the South Sea, he still needed to use these 2 secret techniques to complete one last preparation before he entered the mid-Dharma stage. Chapter 1133. What the 7th Patriarch of Sky-Opening Sect had passed on to the cultivation world were not only the various cultivation methods, divine sense, and secret cultivation techniques, but also most of the other cultivation arts were inherited from these 7 Laozu. Among them, the most famous was Taoist Gui. This Laozu, who was known as the originator of alchemy, had made more achievements in alchemy than he had in other aspects of cultivation. In fact, in addition to Taoist Gui, the other 6 members of the 7th Patriarch of Sky-Opening Sect also had their own strengths in other aspects. For example, Taoist Ape was good at controlling the spiritual veins in the world, searching for mineral veins, and brewing various spiritual wines and liquids. Ping Daoren had a special fondness for puppets. Luan Daoist was good at cultivating various spiritual herbs and spiritual materials. Taoist Chan's talisman-making technique was unparalleled in the world. And it was even rumored that the complete 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman actually came from his inheritance. Taoist who had a set of secret crafting techniques, and Jiao Daoren was not only famous for his divine sense of swordsmanship known as one sword to break all things, but he was also the originator of formations in the cultivation world. One only needed to look at the heavenly poisonous wall that had stood erect for tens of thousands of years to understand Jiao Daoren's attainments in formations. At this time, according to the jade slip left by Kanwu Laozu, the origin of the scale in Lu Ping's hand was explained by the ancestors of the Kongming sect from the heavenly poisonous wall. Lu Ping could not tell whether it was true or not, so he just believed it for the time being. Among the 7th Patriarch of Sky-Opening Sect, Ping Daoren had the Thunder Calabash of 7 treasures, Taoist Ape had the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, Luan Daoist had the 7-feather fan, Taoist Chan had the blood-melting needle, Taoist who had the Overlord hammer, and even Taoist Gui had a Cauldron of Fate. These 6 famous treasures left behind by the 7th Patriarch in the process of splitting the heavens were called the 6 heavenly artifacts of splitting the heavens. As for Jiao Daoren, Laozu, who believed in one sword to break all things, never had a fixed flying sword in his hand. Furthermore, the flying swords he used were extremely ordinary, especially after Ping Daoren used the 7 Thunder Treasures calabash to suppress Jiao Daoren. As a result, people said that if Jiao Daoren also had a flying sword that was as famous as the 6 heaven-splitting artifacts, the ranking of the 7th Patriarch of Heaven-splitting artifact would have to be rearranged. This was something that many cultivators felt regretful about. It was rumored that when Taoist Jiao split open the heavens, he had at least 6 or 7 flying swords in his hands. all of them broke due to being unable to bear the burden of splitting open the heavens. This showed that Taoist Jiao didn't have a single magic treasure that he could use. This was also the reason why sword practitioners in the cultivation world would often use a flying sword as their life weapon at the beginning of their cultivation. In this way, the quality of the natal flying sword could be improved to the greatest extent. At least, it would not break easily in the process of fighting, so that the flying sword could become the shackles of one's strength. Even the sword lineage, which regarded Jiao Daoren as the ancestor of sword cultivation, had to take this as a warning. Did Jiao Daoren not realize this problem? From the point of view of the Kongming sect's previous Laozu recorded by Kongming Laozu, Jiao Daoren had long realized this problem. He had also tried to create a suitable flying sword magic treasure, at least to the level of the 6 heavenly artifacts of splitting the heavens. The item that Jiao Daoren had tried to use to forge his natal flying sword was the horn of Jiao Doran's true soul. This treasure was originally the horn on the head of Jiao Doran's true soul. In the past, before this world had been created, Jiao Daoren and Ping Daoren had fallen from the sky and landed in the westernmost part of the western wilderness, creating the source of the 2 major rivers of the Central Plains, the Qingming River and the Yulon River. Jiao Doran's true soul horn was broken when it fell into Sacred Fall Lake. Unfortunately, when Jiao Daoren used this true soul horn to find Taoist Hu, who was famous for refining weapons, he did not expect that Taoist Hu would refuse. As for why Taoist Hu refused, although the ancestors of the Kongming sect did not know the reason, they speculated that it was because Taoist Hu did not want Jiao Doran's strength to be greatly improved, or because the other Laozu of splitting the heavens, especially Ping Daoren, secretly obstructed him. It should be known that Jiao Daoren only took a flying sword casually, and his strength was only slightly weaker than that of Ping Daoren. If he really had a peerless flying sword, who among the 7th patriarch of splitting the heavens could be his opponent? Although it was just a speculation of the Kongming sect, this reasoning was extremely logical. After Jiao Doran's request to refine a flying sword was rejected by Taoist Hu, Jiao Daoren was so angry that he abandoned the true soul horn. As for where Jiao Daoren threw it, no one knew except Jiao Daoren. Later, Jiao Daoren mistakenly took a poisonous pill made by Taoist Gui and hurt his origin. He recuperated in the secret land of Perished, and set up the heavenly poisonous wall to prevent the poison derived from the poisonous pill. During this period, Jiao Daoren seemed to start thinking about refining a flying sword again. But this time, Jiao Daoren did not intend to rely on others. Instead, he wanted to refine a natal flying sword by himself. Therefore, he left this scale, which recorded the secret method of carving divine thoughts and the Kongming 9 formations. Although Jiao Daoren wanted to refine a natal flying sword, he was not proficient in refining weapons. However, Jiao Daoren was a genius after all. Finally, he focused on his exquisite tactical formations. He concentrated 9 exquisite tactical formations into 9 precious prohibitions, and then carved precious prohibitions on the sword with the secret method of carving divine thoughts. In this way, as long as he found an excellent sword embryo, he could refine a natal flying sword by himself. Needless to say, this so-called excellent sword embryo was the broken horn from Jiao Doran's body of the true spirit. Unfortunately, although Jiao Daoren figured out how to refine his own natal flying sword, he did not seem to have the time to do so. Later, when the 7th patriarch of the Sky Splitter mysteriously disappeared from the northern ice field, this scale was left in the heavenly poisonous wall. Later on, the ancestor of the Kongming sect found it by chance. After the ancestor of the Kongming sect obtained this scale, he studied the secrets of this scale and used it as the foundation to establish the Kongming sect, which became the number 1 tactical formation sect in the cultivation world. However, the ancestors of the Kongming sect did not give up searching for the horn of the true spirit. Unfortunately, they still did not find anything, so the Kongming sect turned its attention to the large sections. They thought that a sacred object like the horn of the true spirit might have already been secretly hidden by the large sects with a long history. Unfortunately, the cultivators of the large sects were not fools. Very quickly, they discovered the means that the Kongming sect had left behind when they were building the sect-protecting tactical formations. Thus, the Kongming sect immediately became the target of everyone and became the target of everyone. In the end, the Kongming sect ended up being destroyed. Inside the tactical formation, Lu Ping thought about the cause and effect of all this, and he could not help but sigh in his heart. At this time, above Lu Ping's core space, the golden horn with a slight arc had begun to have an inexplicable connection with the Dharma power of the dragon since Lu Ping had advanced to the Dharma power stage. After obtaining this object from the deepest part of the sacred lake, Lu Ping naturally guessed the identity of this horn immediately. However, the whole thing was obviously unbelievable, so Lu Ping was still skeptical. It was not until he obtained the explanation in the treasure of Kan Wu on Yuanling Island that he was 70% convinced. When he really held the scale in his hand, Lu Ping finally had no more doubts. The horn that he had obtained was very likely the object that Jiao Daoren had abandoned in the sacred lake after being rejected by Taoist Hu. With the golden scale in hand, the real essence in Lu Ping's blood surged, and like a torrent, it was injected into the golden scale. When the golden scale received Lu Ping's real essence, its surface suddenly flashed with a faint golden light, and the contents of the two secret techniques engraved on the surface of the scale became even more clear. Lu Ping activated the 3 pure true pupils, and he could even see a faint bluish-purple light slowly seeping through the runes engraved on the surface of the scale. Underneath the golden light, Lu Ping could even see a faint bluish-purple light slowly seeping through the runes engraved on the scale. The whole process lasted for a whole hour. If it were not for the purity of Lu Ping's real essence, ordinary cultivators would have used up most of their real essence just by refining it. As the refinement of Lu Ping's real essence became deeper and deeper, the golden light on the surface of the entire scale became more and more dazzling, even with a layer of purple. When the scale was finally refined, the dazzling light also became a little bit, and then Lu Ping's palms suddenly became empty, and the entire scale suddenly disappeared. Lu Ping's divine thought immediately sank into the core space. The moment the scale appeared inside, the Dharma form of the dragon had already wrapped it in the center of its body and flew around it. Just as Lu Ping was quietly waiting for the Dharma form of the dragon to use the scale, he saw the huge head of the Dharma form of the dragon suddenly tilt up, suddenly revealing the inverted scale under its jaw. The golden scale seemed to be attracted at this moment, and slowly flew towards the jaw of the Dharma form of the dragon. Lu Ping's Dharma form of the dragon was the condensation of the essence of the body. Although it had integrated a large amount of pure yang qi, it had not gone through the thunder tribulation after all. To put it bluntly, it did not have a physical body. However, after the scale flew under the jaw of the Dharma form, it merged with the inverted scale that was condensed from the essence of the body, causing the entire Dharma form to have a physical body. Golden and bluish-purple light suddenly exploded under the neck of the Dharma form. During the process of the two fusing, the two secret techniques that were engraved on the golden scale and the original magic seed that was previously on the inverted scale appeared at the same time. And at this moment, the entire surface of the Dharma form of the dragon also shone with a faint golden light because of the integration of the scale. The Dharma form of the dragon also seemed to be much more agile. And after the scale had integrated with the inverted scale of the Dharma form of the dragon, the horn that had been hanging high above the core space finally moved a little. The Dharma form of the dragon spiraled upwards, surrounding the horn in the center. Wisps of origin qi began to gather towards the horn, but Lu Ping was not in a hurry to refine it. Instead, he began to calm down and think about these two new secret techniques. If it were not for the fact that he had to turn this horn into a sword of true spirit before he went through the first thunder tribulation, Lu Ping would not have had to travel thousands of miles to the South Sea to find these two secret techniques after obtaining Kong Wu's legacy. In the end, he had no choice but to delay his advancement to the mid-Dharma stage. Chapter 1134. Although Lu Ping was not a sword cultivator, He knew that a good sword had to be nurtured with the origin chi as early as possible. Only then would the quality of the sword be higher, and the chances of success would be greater. Moreover, this was a flying sword refined from the horn of the true spirit. The reason why Lu Ping had not summoned the thunder tribulation was because of a legend that had been passed down from ancient times. The cultivators who had listened to Jiao Doran's teachings had advised Jiao Doran to not refine a good sword. This way, he would not be suppressed by Ping Doran. The followers of Jiao Doran had this idea. Many of them had even searched the cultivation world for all kinds of rare spiritual materials that could be used to refine a flying sword for Jiao Doran. However, Jiao Doran had always lacked interest in refining a flying sword. It was not until one time when Jiao Doran gave a lecture that Jiao Doran helplessly explained that a sword cultivator needed to become one with the sword, cultivating both life and death. Jiao Doran once had a natal flying sword, but it was later destroyed because of a dangerous encounter. With his current cultivation base, unless he could use a rare treasure that came from the same source as him, he might not be able to restore 80 to 90% of the power of his natal flying sword. Otherwise, with his great divine power at that time, there was almost no difference between an ordinary spirit treasure and a pure yang spirit treasure in his hands. At that time, the cultivators and followers immediately asked when the natal flying sword would be completed. The other asked about the rare heaven and earth treasures of the same origin as Jiao Doran. Jiao Doran's answer to the former was that he would at least need to welcome the first thunder tribulation and refine the pure yang qi to upgrade his natal flying sword to the peak of a spirit-nurturing treasure. This way, although it was still a little late for a real sword cultivator, he could make up for it through the thunder tribulation. The way to make up for it was to begin the thunder tribulation together with the natal flying sword when his dharma power summoned the first thunder tribulation. This was basically a suicidal method. Most dharma cultivators in the cultivation world did not die from various accidents, or from the exhaustion of their lifespan, but from the thunder tribulation. Every lightning tribulation was a test of life and death for a cultivator. Even the most talented cultivator with the greatest accumulation of knowledge would not have a 100% success rate when facing a lightning tribulation. Needless to say, there were other factors involved in overcoming the lightning tribulation. When the Dharma power and the treasure went through the thunder tribulation at the same time, the thunder tribulation that was summoned was not as simple as 1 + 1. In the past tens of thousands of years, there had been people in the cultivation world who had done this, but the conclusion was that those who had done this were people who did not want to die fast enough. Of course, this wasn't to say that no one had ever succeeded. However, those who were able to achieve such a feat were all top-notch figures in the cultivation world. Moreover, half of these people who succeeded had to pay the price of having their origin damaged and their cultivation stagnated. As for the other half who succeeded, they would definitely become characters who could summon the wind and summon the rain in the cultivation world. In the past 2,000 years, the only person in the cultivation world who had done this was the sky-splitting sword sage, Xiao Baiyu. His natal flying sword was not damaged, but Lao Tzu had enough luck. When he had just entered the Dharma manifestation stage, he had found the flying sword that was broken and abandoned when Jiao Daoren opened up the cultivation world of the East Sea when he was exploring the ruins. Although Jiao Daoren did not have a decent flying sword, and several of them were broken during the process of opening the sky, that was only in comparison to the other 6 Lao Tzu's heaven-opening artifacts. For the cultivators or followers of Lao Tzu, even these broken flying swords were comparable to top pure yang treasures that had gone through 3 thunder tribulations. Moreover, these flying swords that were used to open the sky also contained the mark of sword essence that Jiao Daoren had left behind when he used them. This Xiao Laozu was also bold enough. After returning to Skyrend, he resolutely fused the natal flying sword that he had nurtured for 200 to 300 years with the broken flying sword and refined it again, creating a celestial slaying sword. After that, this Laozu and the celestial slaying sword attracted the thunder tribulations at the same time. After narrowly escaping death, he took it back as his natal flying sword. After that, this Lao Tzu could not be stopped. With his mid-Dharma manifestation cultivation, he killed the great cultivator of the Kun fish clan and forced the Kun fish clan to retreat thousands of miles from the East Sea. This shocked the entire cultivation world. It was then that people called him the #1 cultivator of the second generation. There was no need to talk about what happened after that. Xiao Baiyu did not lose a single time when he tested the sword. After passing the second thunder tribulations, he killed his way to Ziyang Palace. He challenged Ziyang Palace's pure Yang sword immortal, LV Taiching, in a one-on-one fight and escaped unscathed. At that point, his status as the #1 cultivator of the second generation was completely established. No one in the entire cultivation world, human or demon, had any objections. The celestial slaying sword also became famous and became one of the top flying swords in the cultivation world. The prototype of the magic weapon he needed to carve was the Horn of the True Spirit, which was a treasure from Jiao Doran's Horn of the True Spirit. Naturally, this speed could be described as terrible. Fortunately, Lu Ping still had the cloud sail. This first calamity defensive spirit treasure not only had a miraculous effect on protecting a practitioner's divine will, but it also had a good effect on enhancing a practitioner's divine will. Thus, when Lu Ping was carving this sword of the true spirit, he could finally increase his speed a little. There was a small copper furnace beside him, which was burning with the most precious soul incense, one of the 3 great incenses in the cultivation world. From time to time, Lu Ping would throw a soul-nourishing pill refined from the soul-devouring crystal of the devil into his mouth to replenish the divine will that he had consumed. This was a long and painful process. Using the divine will carving technique was not only to use the divine will to carve the magic weapon and imitate the treasured prohibitions. More importantly, during the process of using this secret method, one would have to concentrate their mind as a knife to carve. While carving the divine will knife on the horn of the true spirit, it was also carving on the divine will. This pain accompanied the whole process of the sword of the true spirit. 10 years to refine a flying sword. The soul-nourishing pill had already been used up, and the dozens of soul-nourishing incense had also been used up. He had no choice but to use the calming incense as a replacement. As for the calming incense, it was practically useless to Lu Ping. Even so, when he saw the amount of calming incense decreasing rapidly, Lu Ping had no choice but to summon Lu Taohua from Kongming Island. He had her return to the House of Gold to cut down a frightening spirit tree and dig out its roots to make the soul-nourishing incense. Perhaps it was because Lu Taohua was from the Spirit Demon clan, but she was very good at this. 10 years later, Lu Ping finally used his divine will to carve the horn of the true spirit into a 1-meter-long flying sword. On the body of the sword, the 9 talismans coincidentally formed a strange dragon with the body of a snake, the legs of a crocodile, the claws of an eagle, the tail of a fish, the ears of a cow, and the mane of a horse. However, the horn on its head was missing. At this moment, the last stroke of the 9 talismans gathered at the eyes of the strange dragon. As long as Lu Ping finished the last stroke, the 9 talismans would instantly connect and be activated at the same time. This was the uniqueness of the sword of the true spirit. Jiao Doran's 9 talismans were not like other magic treasures, where the 9 talismans were stacked one by one. Instead, the 9 talismans had to be carved at the same time and be activated at the same time. This would allow the sword of the true spirit to step into the realm of a spirit-nurturing magic treasure. Lu Ping took a deep breath. After 10 years of perseverance and suffering, at the last moment, his divine will burst forth like a flood. The last stroke of the 9 talismans was immediately completed, and the strange dragon on the body of the sword moved. The spirituality of the spirit-nurturing magic treasure was activated at the same time. Although this newly formed flying sword had not been tested by the lightning tribulation, the spirituality of the sword was so strong that Linglong, the cloud sail, and the other spirit treasures avoided it. The 7 thunder gem calabash was surrounded by lightning, and once again turned into a lightning cocoon. The thin water sword and the water serene sword of incorporeal sword vibrated at the same time, as if they were welcoming the birth of their own kind, and also as if they were paying respect to their king. Chapter 1135. 10 Years for a Sword. In order to master the sword of the true spirit from Jiao Daoren before he reached the mid-Dharma stage, Lu Ping had delayed his training by a full 10 years. In addition to the years of preparation he had made, Lu Ping had put in more than 10 years of effort. 10 years ago, the top practitioners of the major clans and sects in the Central Plains had all begun to undergo their first thunder trial and reached the mid-Dharma stage. 10 years had passed, and Lu Ping had fallen far behind. Lu Ping's eyes suddenly opened, and his divine will swept across Kongming Island. Originally, his divine will could only cover a radius of 30 miles, which was barely comparable to a great practitioner's, but after 10 years of torturous training with the divine will carving technique to create the sword of the true spirit, it had become Lu Ping's greatest gain. Now Lu Ping's divine will was even more resilient, and his level of practice was even more profound. Everything within a radius of 40 miles was presented to Lu Ping's divine will. But now was not the time to summon the thunder trial. The sword of the true spirit had become a true peak spirit cultivation treasure, and the body of the sword had been formed by Jiao Daoren using the way of formations. Whether it was in terms of the material of the treasure, or its final quality, it was already qualified to undergo its first thunder trial. But Lu Ping was a cautious person. He would rather delay the time to increase his level of practice than take such a huge risk. Moreover, summoning the thunder trial with the sword of the true spirit was a perilous situation. He would rather use his inner yuan to continuously nourish the sword of the true spirit than to let any accidents happen to it. Fortunately, Lu Ping still had something important to do, so he did not waste the time to nourish the sword of the true spirit. Lu Ping took out a spirit sealing box from the storage artifact and slowly opened it. Inside was a group of original essence that had begun to dissipate. One could vaguely see the appearance of an eagle. It was the manifestation of the lone eagle Ingli that was killed by Lu Ping and had his consciousness erased. 9 true spirit transformations. Only with the 9 transformations could one become a true spirit. In the blood condensation realm, fusing 3 bloodlines into one was the 3rd transformation. In the core forging realm, fusing 3 heaven and earth spiritual treasures was the 3rd transformation. In the aspect realm, one had to go through 3 life and death lightning tribulations and refine pure yang qi. This was the only way for cultivators in the world of cultivation to progress from low-level minor repairs all the way to pure yang laozu, and even break through the final layer to become a true spirit. However, there was something unusual about this path for Lu Ping. Along the way, while Lu Ping was facing the 9 transformations, he had also brought along the changes in his bloodline. In the blood condensation realm, Lu Ping had fused the green sea snake bloodline, the primordial giant crocodile bloodline, and the koi bloodline. In the core forging realm, he had fused the deer demon bloodline that Laozu had obtained when he was roaming the Middle Earth, the heavenly horse bloodline that he had obtained from the mysterious bloodstone in the Vault of Thousand Poisons. And now, when Lu Ping was facing his first lightning tribulation, he had killed the lone eagle Ingli in the 5 elements hidden tortoise. When he obtained the lone eagle's manifestation, Lu Ping had already felt that his bloodline seemed to be expressing a strong desire to devour again. Combined with Lu Ping's previous experience in cultivation, before summoning the first lightning tribulation, Lu Ping seemed to want to refine this manifestation that contained the essence of the bloodline. Then, he would use it to refine his bloodline again. Snake's body, crocodile's legs, deer's antlers, carp's tail, cow's ears, and horse's mane. These were the 6 forms that Lu Ping's dragon manifestation had. The next step should be eagle's claws. Lu Ping thought to himself. True Yuan had already begun to surge in his bloodline, taking away the trace of bloodline essence that was floating above his palm. The 7th time to refine his bloodline. The Dharma draconic avatar in the heart space seemed to have sensed something as well. It circled around, roared, and released strands of bloodline essence that flowed into Lu Ping's body through his bloodline. Eventually it seeped into the heart space and was absorbed by the Dharma draconic avatar. Rumble. No one knew when it started, but the sky above Kongming Island's protective formation had darkened. Dark clouds gathered from all directions, covering the entire sky. The formation masters of various sects who were cultivating in the Kongming Legacy Formation were quickly alerted by the dark clouds, but they still did not know where the dark clouds had come from. Muffled thunder rumbled in the dark clouds, but there was not a single flash of lightning. It was as if there were ferocious beasts hiding in the clouds, constantly accumulating power and preparing to deal a fatal blow to their opponents at any time. The formation masters who could not figure out the cause of the phenomenon could only treat it as a coincidence. Although many of the formation masters still had their doubts, no one dared to go into the dark clouds to investigate, nor did they have the ability to break the protective formation of Kongming Island. An entire year had passed. The dark clouds above Kongming Island had grown thicker and thicker, and the muffled thunder had grown louder and louder. However, every time it rang out, it felt as if someone's heart was being hammered fiercely. By now, everyone knew that something extraordinary had happened on Kongming Island. Although no one knew what was going on, many cultivators from various sects had already left the Kongming Legacy Formation to report the news back to their sects through various channels. Then, they returned to the Kongming Legacy Formation again. As Lu Ping refining Li's manifestation, the dragon manifestation that was originally only 4.5 feet long grew once again. Its body stretched all the way to 9.5 feet long, and the dark clouds that had gathered on the island grew lower and lower. It looked like a giant drop of ink hanging in the air, ready to fall at any time. Lu Ping raised his head, and 2 rays of green light shot out from his eyes. It was as if he could see through the formation above him. Even the gathering thunderclouds in the sky could not hide from Lu Ping's true eyes of the 3 pure ones. The commotion this time was a little too big. Lu Ping laughed to himself. It seemed that he still had to find a way to escape after he was done. Most of the formation masters who were studying the Kongming Legacy Formation were not paying attention to the dark clouds above Kongming Island. Today, the dark clouds that had gathered above Kongming Island finally moved. The muffled thunder that sounded like the roars of beasts no longer exploded occasionally. Instead, it became louder and louder, and the dark clouds in the sky began to churn violently, as if thousands of beasts were galloping. Rays of light began to flash through the dark clouds. The formation masters in the Kongming Legacy Formation had all given up on what they were doing and raised their heads to look at the dark clouds that covered the sky. Over the past year, although the dark clouds had become thicker and thicker, and the muffled thunder had become louder and more frequent, the dark clouds had not produced any lightning. This time, a golden light finally appeared among the dark clouds, illuminating the entire sky. Everyone already had an answer in their hearts the moment the dark clouds gathered. However, because there had not been a single lightning strike among the dark clouds, no one had the confidence to say the answer aloud. At this moment, everyone finally understood that the dark clouds that covered the sky were indeed the tribulation clouds. But whose tribulation clouds were these? What kind of tribulation clouds were they? Could it be someone who was facing the second tribulation clouds and was attempting to advance to the late Dharma stage to become a great adept? Looking at the scene before them that covered the sky, it was more or less the case. But why had the tribulation clouds been nurtured in the sky for an entire year? On Kongming Island, Deng Ming and the few demon cultivators under Lu Ping all stared at the tribulation clouds in the sky. After a long time, Deng Ming finally cursed. "What the hell? Brother Lu is an early Dharma adept. Why does this tribulation cloud look like it's the second tribulation cloud?" Samling and the others were also shocked by the power of the heavens and the earth, but they had endless confidence in Lu Ping. Lu Linger was the first to protest and loudly said, "Father will definitely be fine." Deng Ming shook his head and did not argue with these children. He just looked up at the sky, a look of worry flashing across his eyes. Everyone was confused and could only look through the formation above their heads to the center of the tribulation clouds in the sky. That was where the tribulation clouds were the densest. It was so dense that it looked like a large drop of ink was about to fall to the ground. At this moment, that large drop of ink had already turned into a large, shining ball of lightning. It was as if the slightest touch would immediately cause this ball of lightning to turn into a bag of tribulation lightning water, drenching a person's spiritual soul. At this time, although Lu Ping had long been prepared for this, he could not help but be shaken at this moment. He had seen celestial phenomenon Laozu summon the second tribulation cloud, but he did not expect that he had not yet revealed the sword of the true spirit. As he continued to refine it, not only did the sword's aura leak out, but even Lu Ping's own aura was exposed. The method that he had originally used to seal his own cultivation was like paper in front of this sword of the true spirit. Lu Ping smiled helplessly. This time, things had gotten out of hand and attracted the attention of many people. After this tribulation of life and death, it would be a big problem for him to escape safely. Lu Ping shook his hand and grabbed at the void. 40 miles away, a space tunnel suddenly formed, and a giant hand made of yuan-chi reached out from the tunnel, grabbing at Lu Bai. When Deng Ming saw that the Samling were all shocked and was about to resist, he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, "Don't resist, this is your father looking for someone." Sure enough, the three spirits stopped, and Lu Bai allowed the giant hand to guide her into the spatial tunnel, disappearing without a trace. "Father!" Lu Bai exited the space tunnel, and saw Lu Ping looking at her with a smile on his face. Her heart was instantly filled with joy, and she could not help but open her mouth to call out. Lu Ping laughed, pointed to the sky, and said, "Are you afraid?" "No. With father here, Bayer is afraid of nothing." Lu Ping laughed heartily, and suddenly, he exuded a heroic aura as he said, "Although I'm quite confident in this lightning tribulation, I still have to abide by the rules of the cultivation world that have existed for tens of thousands of years. So, you can keep these items for me for now and return them to me when the lightning tribulation is over." The space tunnel appeared again, and Lu Bai had already returned to the side of Deng Ming and the others. No one asked, but they already knew why Lu Ping had taken Lu Bai. Only Lu Bai clutched the house of gold and a storage ring tightly in her hands, but her face was calm, as if she had grown up a lot at this moment. Boom! A white light pierced through the sky, and the entire world fell silent at this moment. Chapter 1136. After sending Lu Bai off, Lu Ping's entire being had calmed down at this moment, like an ancient well with no ripples in it. Behind Lu Ping, the purple avatar cloud had already risen into the sky, shrouding Lu Ping in it like a celestial being. When the Dharma idol cloud had expanded to a radius of 3 acres, a long roar that seemed to come from ancient times rang out from within. The moment the dragon Dharma idol appeared, it raised its head and let out a long roar, as if challenging the golden tribulation cloud that was crashing down from the sky. Rumble! The entire world had gone silent, as if the heavens and earth had been angered by the dragon Dharma idol's arrogance. The cloud that was already on the verge of falling from the golden lightning finally reached its limit. A ray of light exploded, and a lightning bolt as thick as a water bucket pierced through the heavens and earth. The island's protective formation that enveloped Kongming Island seemed to have lost all protection at this moment, allowing the lightning bolt to pierce through the protective formation and fall towards Lu Ping's head. A meter-long golden sword followed behind the dragon Dharma idol. The entire sword shone with a purplish golden brilliance, and the strange WYRM engraving that had disappeared on the sword reappeared at this moment. Furthermore, it seemed to be even more lifelike than before, as if it was about to break free from the sword. Seeing the lightning bolt falling from the sky, Lu Ping cursed inwardly. This was indeed difficult to deal with. This first lightning bolt was already twice as powerful as Jiang Tianlin Laozu's lightning tribulation. Compared to celestial phenomenon Laozu's second lightning tribulation, although it was slightly weaker, it was not that much stronger. The dragon Dharma idol flew upwards, and Lu Ping felt as if he had been hit in the head by a giant hammer. His entire body seemed to sink downwards. He had blocked it. The unknown was always the most terrifying thing. Although Lu Ping had seen celestial phenomenon Laozu and Jiang Tianlin Laozu go through their lightning tribulations, he was still very nervous when it was his turn. Furthermore, he was not only facing his own Dharma idol lightning tribulation, but also the true spirit sword's spiritual treasure lightning tribulation that was constantly following behind the dragon Dharma idol. Although Lu Ping was dizzy from the impact of the lightning bolt, he suddenly felt as if a window had been opened in a mysterious place, as if he had suddenly understood something. Lu Ping's powerful divine will quickly woke him up, and he immediately realized that this feeling came from the pure yang qi. The moment the lightning tribulation struck the dragon avatar's body, the pure yang energy absorbed by the dragon avatar seemed to be ignited. However, this kind of ignition wasn't the same as before, where Lu Ping's meridians were incinerated. Instead, it was a kind of fusion, a complete fusion. If the previous complete refinement of the pure yang qi was just to absorb it into the body of the Dharma idol, at this moment, the pure yang qi that was absorbed was truly being digested. In a trance, Lu Ping's divine will had an illusion that the Dharma idol had been born at this moment, and this wonderful feeling was as if a second Lu Ping had appeared. This feeling was different from the outer body incarnation. Outer body incarnation was only controlled by Lu Ping's divine will. Although it also had some spirituality, it was only an instinct. The incarnation itself did not have a command consciousness to distinguish everything. At this moment, the Dharma idol was like a second Lu Ping, as if it was starting a second life. Lu Ping blinked and looked up, only to see that the second lightning tribulation had come crashing down. Lu Ping was shocked. How did he end up in midair at this time? Lu Ping looked down and suddenly felt a pain on the top of his head. A tyrannical force suddenly poured into his body, wantonly destroying everything. At the same time, Lu Ping felt as if his whole body was about to be torn apart. The indescribable pain made Lu Ping want to open his mouth and cry out, but only a long roar came out. Lu Ping was shocked. For a moment, he could not care about the pain in his body. He felt as if his whole body was falling. Only then did he realize that there was a person sitting on the ground. If it was not Lu Ping's own body, then what was it? Divine will and the Dharma idol fused. So that's how it was. At this moment, Lu Ping felt that the raging force in the Dharma idol's body suddenly disappeared. The dragon Dharma idol turned beautifully in midair, just in time to see the sword of true spirit behind the Dharma idol's tail swallow and spit out lightning. This was the lightning tribulation that had been filtered by the Dharma idol's body before descending on the sword of true spirit. Another treacherous guy. This made Lu Ping think of the 7 Thunder Gem calabash. He did not know what this guy was doing at this time. However, it was just a thought in Lu Ping's mind. Lu Ping suddenly realized that at this moment, the 7 Thunder Gem calabash was eager to try in the core space, as if it was also very interested in Lu Ping's lightning tribulation. However, he did not care about it. At this time, he could still endure the lightning tribulation, so naturally, he would not use it. This might be the only help he had. However, he soon discovered that the raging lightning in his body was still pouring into Lu Ping's body in a strange way. After being filtered by the Dharma idol and the sword of true spirit, the power of the lightning tribulation had become extremely small. Even so, it was a great test for his body. However, Lu Ping's body was clearly extraordinary. After the power of the lightning tribulation flowed through his body, many black-red substances emerged from his body, giving him a ferocious appearance, like a bloodthirsty demon. However, Lu Ping could sense that this was an excellent transformation process for his fleshly body. Only this process had become much more overbearing. For cultivators, lightning tribulation was a tribulation of death. However, it was also a tribulation of life. What mattered between life and death was the preparation that the cultivator had made and whether or not the accumulation of power could tip the balance to the side of life. Lu Ping had made sufficient preparations. However, there was also the sword of true spirit, which was hiding behind the Dharma idol. Due to that, the outcome of the lightning tribulation became even more confusing. The lightning tribulation descended for the third time, and the beautiful scales on the Dharma idol began exploding one after another. The sword of true spirit, on the other hand, continued to spit out lightning bolts. When the lightning tribulation descended for the fourth time, the Dharma idol fell to the ground. One of its broken dragon claws was slowly repairing itself. The WYRM on the sword of true spirit was already swimming around the surface of the sword of true spirit. However, most of the WYRM dared not reveal itself. As for Lu Ping, his entire body was drenched in blood. When the lightning tribulation descended for the fifth time, the Dharma idol's tail suddenly disappeared and the sword of true spirit appeared beneath the Dharma idol's abdomen. Once again, Chen Feng dodged the lightning tribulation's direct attack. Within the core space of his body, the seven treasures lightning gourd had begun to retract the raging lightning bolts within his body, reducing the burden on his body. When the sixth lightning tribulation descended, the Dharma idol's body suddenly ignited with an invisible flame. This was because the pure yang qi had been ignited. The Dharma idol's body began to shrink, but it seemed to become more solid. Lu Ping's spiritual force was also affected by the lightning tribulation. The raging pure yang fire seemed to have started to ignite Lu Ping's spiritual force. However, after experiencing the pain of practicing the spiritual force carving technique, Lu Ping was clearly much calmer about this burning process. With a slight thought, another flame ignited above his spiritual force. However, it was the heaven-level jade phosphorus soul fire. In an instant, a strange scene formed in Lu Ping's spiritual force. The pure yang fire was calcining Lu Ping's spiritual force, and the jade phosphorus soul fire was calcining the pure yang qi. The two seemed to not interfere with each other, but in fact, they were affecting each other. Rumble! There was a deafening sound in the sky again. The seventh lightning tribulation came crashing down, drenching the Dharma idol in an instant. The sword of real spirit could not escape and finally came into direct contact with the lightning tribulation. However, after a violent tremor, the strange dragon appeared from the sword again. It swam around and swallowed all the lightning tribulation's light. The sword of real spirit returned to silence. At this time, the Dharma idol did not look good. It was soaked in the lightning tribulation, as if its entire body had been fried in a pot of oil. At this moment, the reverse scale under the Dharma idol's neck suddenly flashed with a golden light. Then, this golden light spread to the Dharma idol's entire body at a speed visible to the naked eye. The scales that had been shattered by the lightning tribulation began to recover, and were dyed with a layer of golden light. The already illusory tail became solid again, and the dragon claw that had just been condensed after the explosion became no different from before. This golden power not only repaired Lu Ping's Dharma idol at this critical moment, but it also transcended space and descended on Lu Ping's body at the same time. His body, which was originally full of hidden injuries caused by the power of the lightning tribulation, was healing at an extremely fast speed under Lu Ping's spiritual force. After healing, the strength of his body was significantly enhanced. In Lu Ping's perception, the strengthening of his body by this sudden power was not inferior to the spiritual water-nourishing pill that Lu Ping had consumed. However, this power was far faster and more effective than the spiritual water-nourishing pill. After doing all this, the reverse scale under the Dharma idol's neck began to gradually melt. It seemed that this scale had completed its mission and returned to the color of the reverse scale before it fused with the Dharma idol. Even the spiritual force carving technique that was engraved on it, and the 9 treasures formed by the formation also disappeared. Only a few magic seed remained on the reverse scale. Was this a blessing or a curse? If Lu Ping had a choice, he would rather give up this thing that was beyond his control. In that case, would the situation become even more severe? However, Lu Ping did not think so. Furthermore, the severity of the situation did not mean that he was helpless. He had already prepared for this lightning tribulation for decades. Even when the sword of true spirit had unexpectedly appeared, Lu Ping had put in more than 10 years of hard work. He had thought about life and death countless times, so how could he not have thought about this situation that was far from a life-or-death situation? There was another explosion in the sky. The eighth lightning bolt didn't descend but fell from the sky. A dense ball of lightning condensed together like a shining ball. It instantly enveloped Lu Ping's body and the Sword of True Spirit in it. Lu Ping didn't escape from the Sword of True Spirit. Chapter 1137. Although the sudden burst of power from the golden scale was a great help to Lu Ping, who was undergoing the heavenly tribulation, Lu Ping was still not used to something that was outside of his control. He even had a grudge against it. Moreover, the current situation was far from the point where Lu Ping had to reveal all his trump cards. However, this was not the time to dwell on this. The tribulation clouds in the sky had yet to disperse. Not long after Lu Ping had survived the seventh lightning tribulation, the eighth lightning tribulation came crashing down. The moment the eighth lightning tribulation appeared, Lu Ping cursed under his breath. This lightning tribulation was very similar to the seventh lightning tribulation that Lu Ping had encountered when he was observing Lao Tzu's heavenly tribulation. Although this lightning ball was much smaller than the one Lao Tzu had faced in the past, Lu Ping did not dare to be careless. After all, he was only an early Dharma adept now. Back then, celestial Lao Tzu had faced the lightning tribulation to advance to become a grand adept. Like a large drop of viscous liquid falling from the sky, Lu Ping, the sword of the real spirit, and his own body were immersed in this ball of lightning. This time, the power of the lightning tribulation came from all directions. Finally, the sword of the real spirit could no longer hide behind Lu Ping to block the lightning tribulation for him. The Dharma power of the dragon's sword. This time, it did not dare to deliberately protect the sword of the real spirit. Instead, it focused most of its attention on protecting its body. Although a cultivator could not use treasures or items to block the lightning tribulation, it did not mean that it could not be blocked with spells. However, such blocking was often futile in the face of the lightning tribulation. This was because the lightning tribulation would still follow the power of the spell and find its way to the Dharma power. However, this was the effect that Lu Ping wanted. The Dharma power of the real spirit opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of essence qi. Then, it turned into streams of essence qi that swam around Lu Ping's body, turning into four walls that protected his body. Most of the power of the lightning tribulation that struck his body was drawn to the Dharma power of the real spirit. As if on purpose, it even exposed the sword of the real spirit, which had been under Lu Ping's protection. The sword of the real spirit suddenly erupted and slashed 6 times at the ball of lightning tribulation. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. The Dharma power of the real spirit did its best to dodge the 6 slashes from the sword of the real spirit. When the 6 slashes arrived, the ball of lightning tribulation around Lu Ping was broken. 6 large holes appeared on it. It was a pity that the lightning retribution couldn't be eliminated so easily. The sword of true spirit stood proudly, and the lightning retribution that it destroyed landed on its body. Bursts of light flashed, and the entire sword of true spirit flickered. The strange WYRM carvings on the body of the sword would appear and disappear from time to time. However, this greatly weakened the impact of the lightning retribution on the Dragon Law idol. At the same time, Lu Ping's body that was protected by the water seep sword skill was only slightly weakened. The power of the lightning tribulation broke through the essence chi wall and rained down on Lu Ping's body. With a thought from Lu Ping, the 7 treasure thunder calabash suddenly appeared above his body. The lightning tribulation that struck his body was immediately absorbed by the 7 treasure thunder calabash like a whale drinking water. The lightning tribulation that Lu Ping's body withstood was greatly weakened. Moreover, after the 7 treasures thunder calabash absorbed the tribulation lightning, it still looked as if it wanted more. With the thought, Lu Ping's sword light wall missed another tribulation lightning tribulation and the 7 treasures thunder calabash absorbed most of it. As for the remaining tribulation lightning tribulation, Lu Ping's body was strong enough to withstand it. At this moment, Lu Ping seemed to be very meticulous. He wore down the lightning tribulation bit by bit. At the same time, he made the most of the lightning tribulation. However, at this time, the power of the 8th lightning tribulation was completely under Lu Ping's control. The dragon Dharma form had experienced the explosion and recovery of the golden reverse scale when the 7th lightning tribulation descended. At this time, it had finally passed the 8th lightning tribulation. The 7 treasure thunder calabash was still swallowing lightning above Lu Ping's head. Its entire body was trembling. Immediately after, Lu Ping's spiritual force suddenly sensed that there was an additional restriction in the 7 treasure thunder calabash. It was the 8th restriction of the spirit nurturing path. However, the 7 treasure thunder calabash seemed to have a guilty conscience. After condensing the 8th restriction, it sank above Lu Ping's head as if it was avoiding something. However, Lu Ping's spiritual force could clearly sense that the 7 treasure thunder calabash was avoiding nothing but the sword of true spirit, which was swallowing lightning leisurely under the dragon Dharma form's body. In fact, Lu Ping had already sensed this feeling when he placed the horn of true spirit into the core space. Given the 7 treasures thunder gourd's personality, it didn't show any signs of provocation when the horn of true spirit hovered above the core space. However, it also didn't show any signs of fear like it did now. After Lu Ping carved the sword of true spirit into a spirit-nurturing treasure, not only did the 7 treasure thunder calabash become hostile towards it, but the sword of true spirit also rejected the 7 treasure thunder calabash's aura. At that time, Lu Ping laughed in his heart. Could it be that the rivalry between Jiao Daoren and Ping Daoren was so deep-rooted? Now, it seemed like it was true. After the Sword of True Spirit experienced 8 lightning tribulations and became a Grade 1 spirit treasure, Lu Ping actually sensed a sense of fear from the 7 treasures thunder calabash. Even though the 7 treasures thunder calabash had already condensed its 8th seal, the sense of fear seemed to be increasing by the second. Lu Ping clicked his tongue in wonder. One had to know how proud the Thunder 7 Treasures calabash was. Usually, it would compete with any treasures Lu Ping took in and nurtured with his true essence, be it an avatar or a spirit treasure. However, the Thunder 7 Treasures calabash was the only one that had remained indifferent. Now, it even showed a hint of fear. Compared to the 7th lightning tribulation, the 8th lightning tribulation that Lu Ping had passed clearly did not hurt Lu Ping as much. However, before Lu Ping could catch his breath and figure out the reason behind it, there was another explosion in the sky. The dark clouds that blotted out the sky had shrunk by half after the 8th lightning strike. However, the remaining half of the dark clouds were clearly going to attack in full force in this final strike. However, just in case, Lu Ping still swallowed a medicinal pellet concocted from the spirit monster peach. The medicinal pellet turned into a surge of true essence that flowed through his body and finally gathered in his heart space for his avatar to use. A vortex of dark clouds gradually formed in the sky, but the lightning tribulation did not move at this moment. Lu Ping could not help but frown. The lightning tribulation did not fall in time. It seemed to give the person undergoing the tribulation a chance to breathe, but the dark clouds from all directions were gathering towards the center of the vortex. Looking at its power, the power of the 9th lightning tribulation was bound to be extraordinary. How could Lu Ping relax? When the dark clouds finally condensed to the limit, a passage suddenly split open above Lu Ping's head. Lu Ping's expression suddenly changed as a golden river roared down from the passage. Lightning Galaxy River. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, but he did not dare to be the slightest bit slow. With a loud shout, the Dharma power of the dragon did not retreat. Instead, it advanced towards the descending lightning galaxy. However, the moment the Dharma power of the dragon went against the flow, all the spiritual chi in the area was seized by the Dharma power of the dragon. The spiritual chi gathered around the Dharma power of the dragon and formed a torrent of spiritual chi. The torrent of spiritual chi followed the Dharma power of the dragon up into the sky and clashed with the lightning galaxy. Great River East Sword Technique. Back then, When Lu Ping observed Tianxiang Grand Ancestor's heavenly river lightning tribulation, he was inspired and comprehended the Great River Flowing East skill. But now, he was going to use the Great River Flowing East skill to go against the current and neutralize the heavenly river lightning's impact on him. Boom! Hundreds of feet above Kongming Island, the two collided with a loud bang. The golden Milky Way splashed, and the silver waves scattered. The huge phenomenon of heaven and earth froze at this moment, attracting the attention of everyone outside of Kongming Island. To think that the lightning tribulation could be so bold. This was a blatant provocation to the might of heaven and earth. At this moment, Lu Ping was not in the mood to think about this. The only thing he needed to think about was how to survive the attack of the lightning tribulation. Although Lu Ping's counterattack had neutralized the power of the lightning tribulation for a while, the Dharma power of the dragon was covered in wounds. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Lu Ping could not help but show a pained expression. The lightning galaxy was endless and the Great River East sword technique was no longer able to continue. However, Lu Ping's Dharma power of the dragon continued forward and fought bravely against the lightning galaxy, not showing the slightest sign of retreating. On the ground, Lu Ping's body was covered in blood and he looked like an evil spirit. However, the blood this time was different from before. At this moment, the blood that seeped out of Lu Ping's body was no longer the impurities in his body. Instead, it was real blood that gushed out after his body began to crack. Not only that, just as the Dharma power of the dragon broke through another wave of the lightning galaxy, Lu Ping's body spat out a mouthful of blood. Although the Dharma power of the dragon could bear Lu Ping's consciousness, it did not mean that Lu Ping's body had become a dead object. On the contrary, Lu Ping seemed to be multitasking. The Dharma power of the dragon was going through the lightning tribulation, but the real foundation was still in his body. At this moment, the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash could no longer care about the Sword of True Spirit. It hovered above Lu Ping's head and firmly protected his body. At the same time, a lightning shield descended and absorbed all the lightning that struck towards Lu Ping's body into the calabash. However, the calabash itself began to tremble more and more. Amidst the crackling sounds, the entire calabash was immediately submerged in the lightning. The Sword of True Spirit also lost its previous calmness and chased after the avatar of True Spirit. If Lu Ping tried to protect the Sword of True Spirit, the strange Jiao treasure seal would appear on the Sword of True Spirit. If Lu Ping ignored the Sword of True Spirit, the strange Jiao treasure seal would disappear from the Sword of True Spirit, and the Sword of True Spirit would resist the lightning tribulation with its own body. Although the Sword of True Spirit's main body was unharmed, Lu Ping noticed that every time the Sword of True Spirit resisted the lightning tribulation, the main body wouldn't be harmed at all, but the sword's body would constantly tremble. Lu Ping inwardly sighed. In the end, the time it took to form was too short and the time to nurture it was too long. Although the flying sword had enough spirituality, its foundation was still a bit lacking. The heaven rank didn't erase the body of the magic treasure, but rather the spirituality nurtured within. The dragon Dharma power opened its mouth and the Sword of True Spirit let out a cheerful sword cry before entering the Dharma power's mouth and disappearing. As for the tribulation lightning that fell on the Dharma power's body, it suddenly increased by 2/3. The heavenly river of lightning retribution was still wreaking havoc, but the Dharma idol of the dragon Dharma idol suddenly opened its mouth again and a beam of sword light burst out from its mouth, splitting the heavenly river of lightning retribution in two in one fell swoop. Then, a fist-sized pearl was spat out from the Dharma idol's mouth. The pure yang pearl appeared and blocked the lightning river that had been split in two. Then, the river couldn't close up again. The dragon Dharma power turned around and swung its tail, wrapping Lu Ping's body in the Dharma power's body. Only the Thunder Seven Treasures calabash was still surrounded by the lightning and remained motionless. However, Lu Ping's divine will could tell that the Thunder Seven Treasures calabash was currently absorbing Lu Ping's tribulation lightning to condense the ninth spirit nurturing treasure restriction. At this time, the lightning tribulation was finally nearing its end. The dragon Dharma form had already become extremely illusory, but fortunately, there was still the help of the pure yang pearl at the last moment, so the whole process was messy but not dangerous. The mouth in the dark clouds in the sky finally released the brewing lightning river, but the tribulation clouds still didn't disperse. Instead, they condensed into a ball. When the dragon Dharma idol looked up, it saw the condensed object slowly floating down, and then suddenly exploding in midair. For a moment, the sky was filled with purple chi, but a strong gust of pure yang wind blew down. The sword of true spirit hastily jumped out from the dragon Dharma power's mouth. Its whole body began trembling, as though it was drunk. This time, it was not because it was afraid. Rather, it was because it was drunk from the pure yang energy. The sword of true spirit was made from a supreme material, and its body was most likely the horn of true spirit that belonged to Jiao Daoren. However, when it absorbed the gifts of the world, it still couldn't compare to the dragon Dharma power. The scene of purple chi filling the sky only lasted for a moment before the area in the middle suddenly became clear. Clearly, the dragon Dharma power had sucked it clean. Next, the dragon Dharma power plunged into Lu Ping's core space. As for Lu Ping, he continued to sit cross-legged on the ground. The primary energy within his body surged like a mighty river, and the sky-encompassing purple chi gathered around Lu Ping's body once again. It did not take long before a massive purple chi cocoon was formed around him. In the past, after a cultivator had successfully overcome a tribulation, it was already quite amazing for a cultivator to absorb 30% to 50% of the pure yang energy that descended. However, after Lu Ping had successfully overcome his tribulation, the amount of pure yang energy that descended from the sky was more than double that of an ordinary cultivator who had overcome their first lightning tribulation. Admittedly, this was partly due to the sword of true spirit participating in the tribulation. However, the amount of pure yang energy that the sword of true spirit had absorbed was less than a quarter of what Lu Ping had absorbed. It was clear that the true reason why the amount of pure yang energy far exceeded that of ordinary people was because of Lu Ping. After the two cocoons of pure yang were formed, a portion of the pure yang energy did not wait for the pure yang energy to dissipate. Instead, the pure yang energy hovering above Lu Ping's cocoon suddenly shone with a rainbow-colored light. Next, the pure yang energy converged upon the pure yang bead. After that, the sky returned to tranquility. Not a single one of the gifts from heaven and earth went to waste for Lu Ping. At that moment, Lu Ping, who was inside the cocoon of pure yang, was experiencing a huge harvest after overcoming a dangerous situation. There was no longer a need for Lu Ping to risk his life and spend a great deal of time to refine the pure yang energy. On the contrary, the rate at which Lu Ping was absorbing and refining the pure yang energy was abnormally fast. It was so fast that other cultivators would find it hard to catch up to him. This was all thanks to the fact that Lu Ping had been refining pure yang energy for a long time. Be it observing Laozi's tribulation, the pure yang soul, or the pure yang bead, even before reading about the first lightning tribulation, the primary energy within Lu Ping's body had already become very familiar with the process of refining pure yang energy. A vigorous life force radiated from the body of the Dharma form of the dragon, then returned to the blood vessels and surged towards the limbs and bones of the body, nourishing every inch of the body. Lu Ping could clearly sense that the injuries his body had suffered during the previous tribulation were recovering at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, after experiencing the baptism of the lightning tribulation and the nourishment of the pure yang energy, Lu Ping's body had become even more resilient. If Lu Ping's body was equivalent to an ordinary magic treasure before, then his body could even compete with a psychic magic treasure now. However, what made Lu Ping feel the most was the vigorous life force contained in his body and the Dharma form. At their level of practice, they were already very familiar with the feeling of life and death. At this moment, Lu Ping could clearly feel the life force contained in his body. If not for the fact that he had not died prematurely in the Central Plains or had been seriously injured and had lost his lifespan, he could definitely live for 1,350 years. An ordinary early Dharma adept's lifespan was at most 1,000 years, and a mid-Dharma adept who had survived the first lightning tribulation could at most extend his lifespan by 250 years. However, perhaps it was because Lu Ping had refined the Thousand Wonder Dew when he had entered the late core forging stage, or perhaps it was because of some other reason. His lifespan after entering the Dharma stage was 50 years longer than the average person's. Now that he had survived the lightning tribulation and entered the mid-Dharma stage, his lifespan had increased by another 50 years. In total, his lifespan had reached an enviable 1,350 years. Although great adepts of the late Dharma stage were said to have a maximum lifespan of 1,500 years, in reality, there were very few who could live for 1,300 years. Lu Ping's lifespan had reached a point where it was comparable to that of a great adept of the late Dharma stage. After that, the overflowing vitality in Lu Ping's body began to retract, and the cocoon of pure yang around his body became thinner and thinner. At this moment, Lu Ping's entire body suddenly shook, and the cocoon of pure yang shattered. At the same time, the Dharma power of the dragon in his core space suddenly let out a long roar, and the dragon's claws suddenly began to change. The original crocodile's claws had now become crocodile's claws, and a cold light shone from the claws. However, what was even more unexpected to Lu Ping was that the eyes of the Dharma power of the dragon were also shining with a cold light. Its sharp gaze could even pierce through the void 3 feet in front of it, and it had suddenly become a pair of eagle eyes. The seventh Dharma power, the Dharma power of the dragon, not only had eagle claws, but it also had a pair of eagle eyes. Chapter 1138. More than a year had passed since the appearance of the strange phenomenon on Kongming Island, and the endless lightning tribulations had finally begun to descend. As soon as the strange phenomenon appeared on Kongming Island, the news quickly spread from the array masters of the various sects who were training in the Kongming Legacy formation to the various sections. The various sects naturally took this matter very seriously. Even though Mara was currently wreaking havoc in the South Sea, they still sent people to the Kongming Sea. More than a year had passed, and not only had the patience of the various sects not been able to wear out the patience of the cultivators who were monitoring the strange phenomenon, but the vast and continuous phenomenon had made them even more certain that there was a treasure on the island. Looking at the pattern of the phenomenon, it seems to be the second lightning tribulation. There must be a mid-Dharma adept who has advanced to the next level? The person who spoke was the white-haired old man surnamed Ji, one of the few array masters who had appeared after Lu Ping and Deng Ming had opened the teleportation portal of the Kongming sect to Kongming Island. At this moment, the person standing beside him was a mid-Dharma adept in his 30s. The 30-year-old adept seemed to understand what the old man surnamed Ji was trying to say. He smiled and said, "Uncle, please don't disturb me. Even if that person is undergoing the second lightning tribulation, I have seen the lightning tribulation of our sect's Yuding Laozu when he became a great adept. The scene was much grander than this. Even if this person has really passed the lightning tribulation, I believe that he is just barely qualified to become a great adept. Even if I am no match for him, he may not be able to do anything to me. Furthermore, I am not the only one who has come to Kongming Island today." The old man's surname Ji had a look of dissatisfaction on his face as he said, "Since this person was able to enter Kongming Island, he must have the Kongming essence on him. When the various sects besieged the Kongming sect, they were forced to retreat due to the collapse of the formation. Perhaps there are still many treasures left on the island that have not been discovered, especially the core heritage of the Kongming sect. Even the Kongming essence is a rare treasure in the world of practitioners. Therefore, this person must remain in the hands of the Luoyuan sect." The 30-year-old cultivator felt somewhat helpless. Although the Luoyuan sect was one of the 4 great sects of the South Sea, there were so many cultivators gathered in the Kongming Sea. There were also cultivators from the Eastern Sea and the Southern Middle Lands who had heard the news, and he even saw the second direct disciple of the Crystal Palace, Li Shiqian. Although he knew that he was strong, he had no confidence in being able to defeat Li Shiqian. Even if he was lucky, he would still become the target of a multitude of cultivators. The old man's surname G seemed to realize that his thoughts were a bit unrealistic, so he added, "Since this person was able to enter Kongming Island, he must have more than one Kongming essence on him. Our sect must have at least one or two. This matter will depend on Martial Nephew Wu." The 30-year-old cultivator let out a sigh of relief and said, "Martial Nephew will do his best." Similar scenes were playing out all over the Kongming Sea, and the content was more or less the same. The skinny old man who had rushed over to intercept Lu Ping and the others after they entered Kongming Island frowned when he saw Li Shiqian. "That person on Kongming Island is clearly a great cultivator. Why did the palace send you alone?" Li Shiqian smiled helplessly and said, "Martial Uncle Yuan Trigram, it's not that the palace doesn't care about this matter. It's just that there are some urgent matters that the palace has to attend to, so they can't leave for now." Yuan Trigram Laozu was slightly taken aback. "What urgent matters? Could it be more important than the Kongming essence? When the Kongming sect was destroyed, there were only 24 out of 32 Kongming essence. The mysterious divine sense carving technique was also not found. The Kongming sect's formation inheritance is also unknown. You should know that these things are related to the myriad poison firmament wall." Li Shiqian saw that Yuan Trigram Laozu was a little angry and hurriedly said, "Martial Uncle, please calm down. These years, the palace has been expanding. Back then, with the help of the Heavenly Profound sect, we finally managed to gain a foothold in the Central Plains. Now, the Heavenly Moon sect has somehow colluded with the Green Sea Snakes. Now that the Heavenly Profound sect is pressuring the Heavenly Profound sect internally and Mara is wreaking havoc on the sea outside, they have come to ask us for help. The palace can't just ignore them, so they are even more lacking in manpower." Yuan Trigram Laozu snorted coldly and said, "Neglecting the essentials for trifles. Look at what the palace has been doing all these years. Conquering the east and conquering the west, expanding in all directions, but running into obstacles everywhere. The collapse of the Northern Alliance was a good move. But in the end, Xiao Baiyu intervened, and the harvest was far less than expected. Although the Central Plains has gained a foothold, it was dragged into a quagmire, and suddenly stood on the opposite side of the 5 sections. Meddling in the North Sea is a bad move. What benefits can the North Sea get?" Yuan Trigram Laozu was angry and continued to say, "And that Skyrend was aggressive before. Now that Xiao Baiyu came back and senior brother Yuan Yen was killed, no one in the palace has said a word. Now, he has a tacit understanding with the Green Sea Snake." I thought that after getting rid of the Northern Alliance, the Crystal Palace would be the real ruler of the East Sea. But now, the old man sees us in a more passive position. And the old man has to stay in the South Sea. Now, someone has entered the Dark Sky Island. What the hell is this? Li Shiqian smiled bitterly, but did not dare to interrupt. Although he was also a little dissatisfied with the Crystal Palace's method of expanding, only this person in front of him dared to criticize the strategy of his sect so loudly. After all, he was the top formation Grandmaster of the Crystal Palace and had a high status in the Crystal Palace. There were 10 layers of formations in the inner layer of the Dark Sky Sea. This Laozu had already figured out 8 of the 18 formations on the 9th layer. Unfortunately, he had reached a bottleneck when he was figuring out the 9 formations on the 10th layer. So far, he had only made some progress. In the current cultivation world, even if this Laozu was not the best in formations, he was one of the top 5. Although the two of them were conversing using voice transmissions, Patriarch Yuan Trigram's scowling expression had already fallen into the eyes of the cultivators from the other forces. Li Shiqian thought for a moment and said, "Martial Grandmaster, based on the current situation, cultivators from all the sects in the South Sea have come to investigate. However, it is clear that after the 5 elements hidden toward us, the calamity of Mara has swept across the South Sea, and the strength that each sect has sent out is limited. If the cultivator hiding in the Dark Sky Island is really a great cultivator, then everyone might have to join forces. Although our sect is one of the 6 sacred lands, we are still too far away to help, and I'm afraid we won't be able to get the most benefits. Although Lao Tzu was angry, he also understood the current situation. He waved his hand impatiently and said, "The old man is not good at fighting, so he can only help with formations." Other benefits aside, the fact that this person could suddenly enter the dark sky island after a few thousand years means that he must be carrying some dark sky essence with him. We were still missing 8 pieces, and it is related to the sky wall of poison. You must find a way to get a few pieces. Li Shichen smiled and said, "With the help of martial grandmaster's formations, I, Shichen, dare to fight even that great cultivator." At that moment, the 9th lightning tribulation descended on the dark sky island. Pure yang qi sprinkled down from the sky. The black-robed elder smiled at the person beside him and said, "It seems like it is as Marshal Nephew said. Not only is this person's lightning tribulation weaker than that of a great cultivator, but the pure yang qi is also much weaker. Even if he has reached the level of a great cultivator, his strength is still very limited." The person beside the black-robed elder shook his head and said, "That's hard to say. This person could have gone through the lightning tribulation, but he insisted on coming to the dark sky island to undergo the lightning tribulation in front of everyone. Could it be that he did not have the confidence to advance to the late Dharma stage before? Now that he has withstood 9 lightning tribulations, and the pure yang qi sprinkled down, he has really succeeded in advancing." The black-robed elder was shocked and said, "Marshal Nephew Guan Yu, are you saying that the 9 inner formations of the dark sky island can reduce the effects of the lightning tribulation?" The practitioner named Guan Yu hesitated for a moment and said, "It's just a possibility. I can't say for sure." The black-robed Lao Tzu said wryly, "It's a pity that Mara is wreaking havoc now, and our sect can't spare any hands to deal with him. Otherwise, the Guangfa sect would definitely capture this person alive at all costs." Mu Hai and Guan Yu from the Guangfa sect seemed to have discovered something. Not far above the dark sky sea, one of the 2 early Dharma adepts who looked extremely similar whispered to an old man in front of him. This old man was also one of the formation masters who had chased after Lu Ping and the others. He looked in the direction of the black-robed Lao Tzu and said, "No matter what they know, they will have to rely on this person on the dark sky island. Now that this person has gone through the lightning tribulation, he is now absorbing pure yang qi to stabilize his cultivation. I'm afraid it will take some time before he comes out of seclusion." The other practitioner looked around and said, "Now that 3 of the 4 main sects of the South Sea have arrived, only the Honghai Pavilion is still missing. I'm afraid the Honghai Pavilion can't spare any hands." Who asked the Honghai Pavilion's dojo to be the closest to the 5 elements hidden tortoise that appeared that day. When the army of Mara charged out of the 5 elements fog, they would naturally head for the Honghai Pavilion first. The first person was also gloating and said, "The people from the Honghai Pavilion are all fishes. They built their dojo at the bottom of the sea. If it weren't for Yuan Jinglei's sudden warning, Mara's first wave of attacks would probably have broken through their protective formation. By then, even if the South Sea still had the name of the Honghai Pavilion, they would not have the face to call themselves one of the 4 main sections." The other person also said, "What a pity." The old man in front of the 2 of them snorted coldly and said, "The Honghai Pavilion has been around for tens of thousands of years. How can they be destroyed so easily? You 2 little things are so ignorant. No wonder you haven't even crossed the threshold of the mid-Dharma stage." The first person who spoke was not convinced and said, "Uncle, although we brothers didn't make it through the first trial, our combined attack technique is something that few people below the Dharma stage can withstand." "Combined attack technique?" The old man laughed and said, "Although the 2 of you are twins and have a telepathic connection, your combined attack is 30% more powerful than an ordinary person's, but no matter how telepathic the 2 of you are, can you eat together and dress together? Can you guarantee that you will always be together? If someone really wants to deal with the 2 of you, as long as one of you is separated, a mid-Dharma adept will be able to deal with the 2 of you." The 2 of them were silent for a moment. After a while, the old man said, Previously, I instructed you to follow Yuan Jinglei. Where is he now? The two of them perked up and said, That Yuan Jinglei left after his battle with Mara at the Honghai Pavilion and went in the direction of the Yulin sect. The old man laughed coldly and said, As expected. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.